Welcome back to another episode of That Video Game Podcast, aka TVGP. I'm your host, Boston, and joining me as always is Moonpier.
Why, hello.
And the Nimp.
Yes, why hello.
That's right. We are here for our top 10 of 2023, our first of two podcast holiday episodes. We've got this coming out this week, and we'll have the predictions episode recapping 2023 and talking about 2024 next week. Reminder that we don't have a live stream for this, but we are shooting video for this, so check out the YouTube channel for videos of this if you want to see our lovely faces talking about all these games. Before we get into this episode, I would be remiss. We try and keep this thing kind of positive here, but 2023 was you hear the refrain pretty often about it's a great year for games, but unfortunately it wasn't a great year for the industry. We are nearing 10,000 layoffs here this year across the entire industry in a year that has yet again hit record profits. So wanted to sit here and kind of make sure we mention that, where it's certainly not anything. Layoffs are part of this industry, unfortunately, every year, but certainly not to the degree that happened this year. So our hearts go out to everybody that's been affected. I hope people are finding new jobs or getting into an industry that doesn't seem to hate them and love capitalism at the same time.
Hold on. Are you aware of what you just said?
This industry loves capitalism. 100%.
Every industry loves capitalism.
That's
dude.
right.
That's the problem.
That's right. Get into the mill, humans. So wanted to call that out here first before we get into the more positive stuff, that it definitely is an issue. Hopefully 2024 brings more unionization efforts, and hopefully the industry treats its employees and its workers a little bit better. Fingers crossed.
Who knew that Abe's Odyssey was a predictive game all those years ago?
That's right. That's right. All right, let's move into the top 10 itself. Lay down some of the rules here. We'll talk about the sections we're going to go through. Most importantly here, we haven't seen each other's lists. This is like a sealed envelope thing. We let each person have their own moment. This is their list. We want people to kind of pull up the soapbox here and talk about the stuff they really loved this year. We also don't really have any rules whatsoever for the games that people have on their list. If they want to put something that came out 10 years ago and they played this year, cool, man. You want to put 10 remakes and remasters? Yeah, man, that's cool too. Whatever. We're not
Wait until top 10 2024 when all of us have Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2 on every single one of
I was
them.
going to say that same thing. Yeah.
The best of 2023. Yeah. We really try to not spoil anything in these lists. If we are going to spoil something, we usually make note of it beforehand, but we really try not to. So this should be largely spoiler-free. Speaking of the great games of 2023, this really recaps December 2022 to December 2023. If you're looking for a game that came out later this year, you might want to try looking at next year's episode around this time, 2024.
Yeah. So just to clarify for the people who are listening who might not have access to the Outcasts or don't know us on a slightly more personal level because of it, we all have full-time jobs. So this isn't our career, patreon.com/E1M1.
Ones are numbers.
Thank you. Get that up to a decent high number and we can make this our full-time jobs, and then we'll have more accurate lists each year.
That's right.
But unfortunately, we all have things that keep us busy from 9 to 5, 9 to 12, 9
Baldur's
to
Gate is
7.
a 180-hour minimum game,
That's right.
okay?
That's right.
Yes.
And that segues nicely into my next point, which is not a comprehensive list of what's best this year. It's just what we loved. So
what we played and enjoyed.
Yeah, like if your favorite game is not on here, probably didn't get to it, man. Or we hated it. Either one. You get to choose which one.
Either one.
Yeah, that's up to you. Let's talk about the sections, the categories we're going to talk about here. We're going to start off with a recap of each of our individual year of gaming. How our year of gaming went in the year where about 7,000 games came out that we were all interested in. We're going to talk about best old game. This isn't really this is kind of a looser category here of just like, hey man, what older game did you play this year that you really loved? We also have 2023's Alpha Protocol. This is kind of our best B game this year. What game kind of reminds us of the spirit of TVGP favorite Alpha Protocol the most? We'll talk about honorable mentions, games that just missed our top 10 list here, but are also really great. We're going to talk about TVGP's Community Game of the Year, the top 3 games that you as the listeners voted for. And then we'll talk about our top 10. We do have a category that is being removed this year. That's going to be games I missed, because if they're not in the list, we either hated them or didn't play them.
List.
Yeah. So, again, you get to choose. All right.
Chances are you're right.
That's right. Your headcanon. What did we feel about your favorite game? All right, let's get started here. Moon, why don't you kind of recap your year in gaming, and then I was thinking about this question as I was struggling to make my own top 10 list. How did it go making your top 10 list this year?
Honestly, like, as a whole, so here's the funny thing, is I think I got my recap last year on, I think in the episode before this one, I mentioned, I mean, if I'm lucky, I got about an hour a day to play video games.
Right.
So I looked at my recap stats this year. If my math is correct, I played 6 minutes a day, is what I tallied out to.
Okay.
So that should tell you how far down my gaming time has gone over the past 12 months.
Right.
It took a distinct swing down. And the funny thing about that is part because of that, as a whole, I've been playing more things I'm comfortable with. I spent an entire month playing Alan Wake Remastered rather than anything new because I didn't want to play anything new. I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. Also, I need to complete the trilogy. Remastered, Control, Alan Wake 2. Right. I think the funny thing for me personally is my gaming time this year has gone one of two ways. Depending on my mood, my ability to be social as like a hardcore introvert, like you people don't understand, like I'm not just a regular introvert, like I'm like, there's 3 people in this room, I'm going to have a panic attack level of introverts. Like that is how much I'm terrified of people. So my gaming has either gone very, very single player, where it's just like, just give me this single player content, wherever it may be, story, shooter, whatever it is, or it's gone the direct opposite, and it's like, I need to talk to my boys, I need to have a chit chat with my friends, so therefore I have to play this game, and it's a co-op game, so that means I can play it with Rob or Nimp or the community or that kind of thing. Like it's only really gone in those 2 ways, and like being able to actually sit down and play games this year, yes, we had a lot of great games, but on a personal level, I've had less time to do so. So I've had to be a little bit more finicky with my choices when it comes to both buying and playing what I have.
Right.
That's one of the reasons why I went to Horizon, because it was like, this is a game I don't have to think about. It can be done single player, it can be done multiplayer, where I can just sit there. And at one point, like, I'm sitting there doing the races and I explained on the show, with one hand on the controller.
Right.
Like with my middle finger hitting the accelerate button and just letting off to turn the corners, so I could literally not have to do anything other than like zone out kind of thing. So I don't know, it's been fun. The games have been great. I picked up a lot of games this year which I'm looking forward to playing, but I just need to fix my headspace to really jump in and start to like delve in and enjoy them kind of thing.
Right.
I'm looking at you, Alan Wake 2, Baldur's Gate 3, El Paso Elsewhere. Like all of these things are things which I'm I picked up thinking I'll play that now, and then immediately decided not to.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
So was it easy or difficult to craft your top 10 this year, do you think?
It was easy to put them on my list. Putting them in the right place was problematic. There's one which I'm sitting here and like I'm thinking, do I switch that one out for this other one or
You're
not?
still looking at it here.
100%. I told you before we started recording today, like I'm still trying to get my list in order, and I don't know where this stuff goes. Like,
Right.
do I put this one higher because it came out this year, or do I put this one lower because it came out 2 years ago and I'm only getting to it now? Like, how does that affect how I feel about the list?
Right.
Because for me, it's the What Remains of Edith Finch paradox. Which is to say, when we did that year, I think I put What Remains of Edith Finch. I like number 6 on my list, I think it was. And since that year, it is the only game that has stuck with me, and I think about time and time and time again into the future. Now, obviously, the problem is I can't predict the future. I don't know if I'm going to be alive in 6 months, let alone what game I'm going to be thinking about, you know? So it's like, is this going to stick with me over the longer period of time, or is this other game going to stick with me longer? And figuring that out, and that's something that has been part of my process now since the Edith Finch year, or like 2 years afterwards. I was like, crap, I think I did that game dirty. Trying to figure that out has been the hardest part.
Right. Nimp, how has your 2023 in gaming gone? Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty much the same of what Moon said. I did some real quick rough math, and mine was about an hour a day, maybe. But I can tell you what it really is Monday through Thursday, I don't play video games, and then Friday night, Saturday is when I get to play video games. So, you know, between helping kids with homework and just work in general, but whatever. And this year's just been, you know, hey, real life sucks and the world's going nowhere great.
Right.
But for the actual list, though, I did manage to play enough games that I have a full top 10 list.
Okay.
And in my mind, and this may spoil if people have really been paying attention, I have like a certain criteria where, okay, I have to have beaten the game. That puts it within a certain range of the list. And if I happen to get all the achievements or a platinum, that puts it within a certain range of the list, because I don't do that normally. So if I decided to put that time into it, you know, it was a real fun game for me.
Right.
But then you get other things where there's like JRPGs where I could put 500 hours into the game and I would need another 2,000 hours to even get close to a platinum. So, you know, it ebbs and flows with that. But the list right now, as I'm looking at it, I'm happy with all the games on my list. Let me put it that way. I have not, like Moon was saying, I've been very, very selective with the games that I've been purchasing this year. One, because they're expensive. Right. And two, if it's not, like, a lot of games are kind of known quantity at this point. It's not like back in the day where it's like you bought a game sight unseen at a store and you're like, I don't know, it's $20 and I may or may not like it.
Cool.
Yeah, at this point, it's kind of like I'm spending $70 on this game. I need to know before I buy it if I'm going to like it.
Right.
Now, Game Pass, PlayStation Plus, that's helped with some of this too, where I'm not taking as big of a hit on that to kind of explore. But as my list is set, I think I'm happy with how it is.
Nice.
So you may hear me clicking in the background off and on, but I think that happens every year we do this. So.
Yeah, someone mentions a game and you're just like, oh no, okay, wait, I got to redo my list here. Yeah. Yeah, I've felt pretty good about my year in gaming. I keep a running list of games every year. I have a a note here in Evernote. It's called the Cool Games I Don't Have Time For But Can't Forget About list for every year. And it very much is that, where it's like, okay, I'm not going to be able to get to any of these. I know for sure I won't be able to get to any of these games that are on this list, but they look really cool, or they're kind of small and I can't fit them in right now, or it's like Alan Wake or Baldur's Gate 3, where it's like, I don't have the time or the cash right now to play it. I'll check it out later. That list is way bigger than in previous years, I think. Number one, because there were so many incredible games that came out this year. I'm sure that every other top 10 you're reading or listening to this year is saying the exact same thing. You're probably saying the same thing to yourself too, of like, yeah, man, this was a great year for games. But I also kind of, usually once November rolls around, I kind of put the gas to it a little bit, where it's like, all right, I got to play these 5 games for this year's top 10. I got to get them in the list. I should. And this year I was just like, nah, man, I'm good. Like, I'm going to take a more zen approach, where it's like, yeah, man, I'm going to play an old Yakuza game from like 10 years ago. I'll do that instead. Yeah, all right.
I think we all independently did that. Like,
yeah.
Moon was just talking about how he's playing Alan Wake.
Right.
There's another game that I was playing that came out a couple years ago, where it's like, I should have been playing something that was going to end up on the list, and I'm like, you know what? No, man, I don't feel like it.
Yeah, I'm not going to punish myself by trying to rush through 5 games here. So
I do think it's kind of funny that we've all kind of transitioned from a physical pile of shame to I have a digital list pile of shame.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, dude, my hard drive's on my pile of shame every year.
That's right. That's right. And my list, I had, I think, 12 games I had, because I have a very similar requirement of 99% of the time I finish the game that's going to be on my list. There's some games that are kind of, for one reason or another, on the list, even though I haven't finished them. But a lot of it was like, all right, I got 12 games here that I finished, that I'm on the list. All right, these 2 are kind of easy to cut. And then I kind of threw an order at the wall and kind of went to bed. I woke up the next day, I was like, that's not bad, and moved a little bit around. I'm still not. There's some years where I come into this and I'm like, this list is infallible. This is perfect. I wouldn't change a thing. That doesn't feel like it this year. I could move a whole bunch of stuff around and still be pretty happy. So this year's list was tough. I think largely because pretty much everything I played this year I really loved, which makes it pretty tough to rank it. So, all right, let's talked about this year enough, please. 2023. Let's talk about our best old game. It's a game that it doesn't really matter when it came out. Was it 1993? Was it 2022? Doesn't really matter. It's just older, and we loved it. Moon, what's your best old game for this year?
I have more than one.
All right.
I love it.
Celebrating games, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the one that didn't make my top 10 list against my better judgment. This is though I removed this from my top 10 list. It's Monster Hunter Rise, which specifically came out on Game Pass this year. Yep. It's the Switch version, I believe, that we got finally on the Xbox. I adore Monster Hunter Rise. I genuinely do. I think it is one of the most approachable Monster Hunters I've ever played, and one day we will get Boston in. One day he will become a hunter with us. Is it? Hopefully, it's the true next gen one, Boston, when they've fixed all of the things.
Yeah, who knows?
It is. I had so much fun with Monster Hunter Rise. The only reason it didn't make my top 10 list, if I'm completely honest, is because, one, it is an old game. And number 2, I have games of this ilk in my top 10 list already that came out this year. So I was like, okay, I think Monster Hunter Rise needs to sit here.
Sure.
It's still great. Can't recommend it enough. You should definitely play it. And the other one, and something tells me this might be somewhere on one of Boston's lists this year, is Atomic Crops.
Yeah.
One of the... Go check out We Roguelike It, whatever season it was that we did. Or
it's
whatever.
definitely this year
Critical
we played
Misses
it.
Talk. Yeah, go check out the 4 episodes we did on Atomic Crops, because that is one of the most unique, fun, crazy, stupid roguelikes that I have ever played.
Yep.
And it scratches like 4 different itches at the same time, which I think is just fantastic. It has some of the best end of season music. When you finish a season, it's so catchy.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful, wonderful game. And you can get it with the DLC for like 12, $13 usually. Like,
Yep. It's really cheap, yeah.
go support those devs. Like,
Yep.
the artwork is fantastic, the music is fantastic. How they made a gameplay loop that satisfying is shocking.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic game. And again, the only reason that didn't make my top 10 is because it is from a couple of years ago, and I wanted to give it some props where it was due.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Was that all your old games?
That is all.
Okay. All right, Nimp. What is your best old game for 2023?
My best old game for this year is 2016's Quantum Break.
Yeah. There you go.
Man, I don't know why people dislike this game. It's just, I think it's just one of those things that for some people it's too artsy fartsy, and they're just like, no, we just want to shoot things and whatever. I really enjoyed the pacing of it. I like how you get like hour and a half of actual gameplay, and then it's like, hey, here's like a 30-minute TV show for you to watch.
Yep.
And depending on what you did, this will be different from other people who have also played the game. I also like that they've got the Walking Dead, hey, you and your friends voted this way or went with this choice or whatever. But it was the fact that it's short, because I think it was around 10, 11 hours for me to beat. I just had this nice little flow of, I would play my section until I got to the point where I had to make the choice, and then the TV show would get ready to air. And then I would just exit out of that, and then I would just watch the TV show the next day, and then I would continue playing. And that was just kind of my flow with the game, because that would just, it kind of acted like a last time for me what I did, even though you're getting a completely different perspective. And I think that's the other great thing is it wasn't a TV show that was recapping what you did as the player. It was a TV show that was showing you, hey, you did this in the game. This is how the enemy is reacting to what you did in this game.
Right.
And it was just really cool. Really well put together. The acting, both in the game for the voice acting and as well as the actual acting in the TV show, was like really, really good. So I hope we get something else out of that. Yeah. That would, and I hope people don't crap all over it like they did this one.
Yeah, give it a shot. You might love it too.
Yeah. But it is, if no one else has played Quantum Break, it is on Game Pass. And I also looked, physical copies are pretty cheap, and digitally it goes on sale fairly often, so you can get it for sub $20 if you're interested. So.
My best old game, I was going to give it to Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I think it wasn't as all-encompassing as the game that I have here, which is Atomic Crops. Like Moon said, we played this on We Were Like It sort of halfway through this year, and we picked it up, and it said like, oh yeah, it's a combination farming game and twin stick shooting roguelike. Okay, sure, cool. And from probably the first handful of runs, it just consumed our entire month completely. I squeezed every last ounce of content in this game, which we very rarely do on We Were Like It, but it was just really the perfect blend of kind of, we talked about it with some roguelikes where you're switching modes, where it's kind of like, all right, you go out, and in this game you go out, you kind of fight a bunch of stuff until sunset, the sun goes down, you come back to your farm, you do all your farming and your defense stuff, and then you start the next day by doing the same exact thing. And the loop there was really, really great. The shooting felt really great. The enemy types were really interesting. It's just one of those games where it's like, all right, that was a really great run. I'm just gonna do another. I'll just do one more. I don't. That run didn't go very well. I'll do one more, and it's just that whole thing for an entire month straight. Atomic Crops is really something special, and one of those games where we play it and we're like, yeah, this is one of those roguelikes you really need to play, and it's really really fantastic. So, like Moon said, go pick up Atomic Crops. You'll probably really like it.
Yep.
Let's talk about some other games that are near and dear to our heart here. 2023's Alpha Protocol. If this is the first time you're listening to one of these, or maybe you're a new listener to the show overall,
Go play Alpha Protocol.
that's right. Go play Alpha Protocol. It's our favorite B game of all time. It's got some problems, but it's got plenty of charm. We sort of think of B games as they're not very polished, but they're a diamond in the rough. You know, they got some issues, they got some rough edges, but they're a real interesting, unique, memorable sort of game here. So we like to pay homage to Alpha Protocol and pay homage to our love of B games here by recognizing a very special B game that came out this year or we played this year. It's all good. Well, you know, who cares for strict rules? So Moon.
Yeah. Sometimes a bad game isn't all bad, is what we're trying to say.
Right. So Moon, what was your Alpha Protocol of 2023?
Stop me if you've heard this before. I have two.
Okay, I like it.
I'm going to go with the joke answer first because my Alpha Protocol award for number one goes to Rumbleverse, which for some reason doesn't work anymore. Anytime I load it, it just doesn't match me.
A server
I don't know what is going on.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate Alpha Protocol game. It stopped working.
Hey,
that's very strange and weird that happened. Rumbleverse was sick, and I'm sad to see it go. Is the lesson of this?
That's right.
This vote here. My actual Alpha Protocol award, and I think I might again be right on line with Boston when I put this one out there. It's Genesis Alpha 1.
Right.
So
another Wii roguelike.
For those of you who don't know what that game is, because unless you listen to our roguelike show, you won't know what that game is. It is a space exploration, base building, tower defense roguelike.
Yeah.
First person shooter.
Yeah, don't forget about that part too.
It is one of the weirdest, biggest scoped games I have ever seen in my life.
Yep.
With almost no budget to execute on it.
Right.
And somehow the game went from like this is one of those great times when we do We Roguelike it. There's sometimes we play a game and we know for 4 weeks that we're just going to play it and it's not going to click. We're not going to enjoy it, but we're playing it to do our research.
Yep.
And there's other games that like click almost immediately. Atomic Crops, I'm pretty sure, was one of those that just clicked. It was just like, oh yeah, Dan, now I get it.
This game's great. Yeah.
Rogue Legacy 2, very similar thing. Like go in knowing what we're going to get, and it's fantastic from the get-go. Genesis Alpha 1, I think the first week we were both kind of The second week I was like, no, Boston, this game is great.
It happened.
And then the third week, Boston was like, hey, Moon, guess what? This game is great.
Yeah.
And it just clicked at different times with us, but it is one of those games that like I went into and I was expecting question mark from it. And now it's all I want to do is sit there and play that game until I get every single achievement in it because it is so dumb and amazing. And like it's got like crew management and like all kinds of stuff going on in there at the same time. I don't know how they put this many systems into one game. I just don't. And it is broken. It is not game-breaking broken, but it's glitchy. It is graphically questionable. The controls are iffy.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's just so much fun to like invade a different ship and get completely wiped out in about 4 seconds flat because you just jumped onto a ship with people made of gas and you don't know how to fight that. And not even talking about the very first time that you go onto like a derelict spaceship or a base or something, and you run into space spiders for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And they are appropriately horrible and disgusting. And you know that to get rid of them, you have to destroy their eggs, which makes more space spiders show up. It's just.
Yeah.
I think the spirit of Alpha Protocol is probably, for me, best honored this year with Genesis Alpha 1.
Yeah.
Because it has that charm. It has that, to steal the reality show, it has that X factor that for whatever reason clicked with me and stuck with me and made me think about a game that probably doesn't deserve it, but is still a stupidly fun thing to play.
Right.
If you like bad games and you like roguelikes, maybe give Genesis Alpha 1 a try. Or watch the trailer. It is weird in all of the best ways, but that is my Genesis Alpha 1 award.
That's right.
That is my Alpha Gold award.
Nib, what is your Alpha Protocol for 2023?
So, mine's going to be a little bit of a hot take. Okay. And surprisingly, a lot of what Moon just said could be applied to this game as well. Except
Kingdom Hearts 3.
No, except
that's number 2.
Except the fact that this game had all of the budget, had all of the resources, had 2 different studios helping out, and it had constant delays. And that game,
Starfield.
Yes, is Starfield.
I was thinking that's what he's warming up to.
Yep. So, even though this is a AAA game, it did not feel like it. And I want to say all this up front. I'm not attacking anybody on this. If you love this game, that's perfectly fine. You're probably not going to like the stuff in my top 10 list. Some of the things in there. I don't take offense to it. Don't take offense to what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
This game, without all of the hype, because I didn't pay attention to any of that crap, when I first started playing it, I was like, cool. This seems like it's going to be a fun game. This seems like something that will kind of scratch that itch for Elite Dangerous, what we've been wanting with the space legs and stuff like that. It really did not for me. It is the least buggy Bethesda game I have ever played. First and foremost.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that it's bug free. I had weapons that disappeared on a ship that were in inventory. I had inventory that disappeared. I had excuse me. I didn't like any of your companions that you could have except for Vasco, and that was because he was programmed to not have an opinion.
Right.
Because it felt like any time I did something good or bad, there was somebody there waiting to yell at me for the choice that I made.
Yep.
And it was just super annoying. The game, the world itself, just kind of felt like you were in small little contained areas, and that you were basically just traveling far enough to hit a fast travel, so that way you can hit a load screen, so that way you can hit another fast travel to get where you need to go to then hit another load screen. So it just didn't feel as big as any other kind of space game that you would play. And the game that I would compare it to the closest would be No Man's Sky. Granted, No Man's Sky came out extremely broken, but now, now it is better. It is way better than it was on release. And I feel like comparing them, especially since the story's similar, I feel like No Man's Sky is the better space exploration game than Starfield.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of sucks, because it seemed like this was going to be a really great, even with the shipbuilding stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The shipbuilding was fine, but it was hidden behind its weird leveling system. And you had to pump hours into that before you could even get to the higher end shipbuilding stuff. Excuse me. Which I don't necessarily have an issue with their leveling system or how their skills were set up, but it just seemed kind of weird, some of the things that they had blocked out as a higher tier skill.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, the whole game just feels kind of slapdash in a way. It also didn't help for things that also broke. One of the when you're doing the corporate espionage mission, and I go to shut off the lights, and it says I did it, and none of the lights shut off, and I'm in full stealth, and everyone can see me clear as day.
It's great.
But even with everything negative that I have to say about it, I still did have fun with this game. The best I can say about this game, and I've said it in the past, it is the most non-offensive video game I have ever played. Where for about every bad opinion I have or thing that I could point out, I've got at least one good thing that I could also point out on it.
Right.
The ship flying felt fine in the confined space that you had. The shooting felt fine. You know, it wasn't going to win FPS of the year. I liked how the different worlds, the different areas that you went into all had different gravity types in them, especially when you're doing like ship to ship. So that was pretty sweet. So, I mean, it has a lot of good ideas, and I hope that Bethesda just keeps updating it and gets it to that point, like with No Man's Sky, where I can come back to it and be like, okay, cool, this is how it should have been released. I've got no qualms with it. But as it is, since the last time, since I had beaten the game earlier, I mean, it's a weird mess. It's a fun weird mess, but it's a weird mess. So.
I originally was going to give my Alpha Protocol award to Genesis Alpha 1 as well. For exactly the same reasons Moon said. I just want to give it a real quick shout out here. It's very much the like, there are three of us and we have no money, but we have this dream game we're going to make. And they did. And it's really great and super rough, and you might need to play it for about 2 weeks like we did until you have that one run where you're like, oh, all the mechanics now make sense, how they all kind of interlock with each other. Yeah, okay, yeah, this game's great. Yeah. So it Justice Alpha 1 is a very weird and very cool, wonderful B game. But I gave my Alpha Protocol award this year to Remnant from the Ashes, which I played with my longtime friends Bill Sivert and the Hannah in 3-player co-op this year. And to me, this is like one of the exact examples you give of like a B game, a lovely Alpha Protocol type game. It doesn't look super varied. All the environments are kind of all like 360 brown or gray. You're getting lost a lot in a lot of the environments. We talked about when we were talking about Remnant 2. Two people can't talk to the same vendor at a time. Like, there's all this weird kind of stuff, but having 3 people work through this game together and, you know, scouring every corner of each one of these dungeons to find where you're going and unlocking shortcuts and fighting these incredible bosses, like, the moment-to-moment gunplay is good, and it feels really good, but taking down each one of those bosses, especially that final boss where you kind of figure out how to beat it, and having that like almost MMO aha moment of like, oh, that's what okay, now I get the mechanics. Okay, now we can do this. And within like 2 or 3 runs, you do it, and like that consistently felt good each and every time. And it's just one of those great games that you, especially for kind of where we are at our lives right now, as we talked about in the intro, we're not going to be sitting there on like a Saturday playing this for 10 hours straight with 2 other people. We're going to be playing this for maybe an hour, if we're lucky, once a week with our 2 friends. And over the 2 months, you're just slowly working your way through it. And I think a game like this really is helped a lot by having that experience of, here's my 2 friends, we're going to have our play date every week, we're going to go through it, and it's going to be really great. And just kind of chip away at it, week over week over week. So
the best part too, it's also got that Souls jank. So 9 times out of 10, you did a thing, you don't think it did anything, and then it turns out that it did. But then there's always that one thing that it's like, I think we broke the game. No, we actually broke the game. We have to restart.
My favorite thing of like, I'm going to roll out of the way of this enemy's attack, and all 3 of us roll off the same edge of the bridge at the same time. It's like, well, okay, there it is.
No handrails. Yeah.
Yep. So thank you from Remnant from the Ashes. You were really great this year. Speaking of games that were really great but kind of just fell out of the top 10 here, let's talk about our honorable mentions here. These are the games that came out this year, or probably came out this year, and were really good. We played this year, but they just kind of missed the list here by a hair. Moon, why don't you take us through all of your honorable mentions?
I only really have two, if I'm completely honest.
Okay.
The rule of two, huh?
That's right.
Yes, the rule of two.
Consistency.
Let me wait until we get to my top 2 games of the year. Let me tell you. Starfield is one of them. Like Nim said, like there is a lot to enjoy about Starfield, but my problem is I want to build a ship, and right now I'm stuck in that loop of leveling up to get skill points to increase my level so I can increase my starship technical ability and create better ships. I've got 700,000 credits waiting to be spent on building a ship, but I can't do it because I don't have the skill points to do so.
Right.
So I'm at a wall in the game where it's like, yeah, I'll play it for like 2 hours and then stop playing it. But what I have played, I have enjoyed. I hate Sarah, but her loyalty mission was genuinely a fantastic little story. I'm not gonna spoil what's happening there, but the worst part is I think it's worthwhile because she has a genuinely tragic backstory, which kind of actually explains why she is the way she is. But the problem is
she's just a bad character. That's all there is to it. I don't have
the
to
problem
spend
with
anything.
that is you have to spend time with her to learn what that is.
No, toxic relationship.
It's the opposite of the Mass Effect problem, where I really love Jack in 2. And I wanted to know why Jack got the way Jack is. Yeah. Jack is arguably a bad person. Great character, bad person.
Right.
But you find out why Jack got the way they were because of their missions, because of getting to know them and everything else that goes on in that game.
Right.
Whereas this one is just it's fun to play. Patches reduce the need even more to go into space, which I think is a problem.
Yep.
So I don't know why they just didn't cut the entire space part out and just have it what they have right now, which is the cutscene of leaving a planet and then landing on a different one. Just do that.
Right.
That's what Mass Effect did.
Yeah, exactly. Bringing it all back.
It was incredible. That's all you had to do. You had to do that instead of this arcadey but fun to play stupid space system. You could have got rid of the whole thing and focused more on the characters, the world building, and all this other kind of stuff.
Right.
But you didn't, and that's their choice. That's fine. So I will engage with that probably as much as I need to get the best ship ever with the most cargo space, because I have a problem, and move on from there. But no, it's fine. It's fun. I've enjoyed playing it, but it's a Bethesda game, so it's going to take me 6 years to beat.
Yeah.
I'm looking over my shoulder at Fallout 4, waiting to be finished.
12 years later, yeah.
That's right. Nimp,
my other.
Oh, sorry. That was only one. I lost track.
Rule of two.
Rule of twos. Rule of twos.
I'm a Sith. My other honorable mention is Dune Spice Wars. It is a 4X game that I am only able to play because I know the material it is based on. Because I know the material is based on, that's made it easier for me to get into an arguably very difficult game game type, a genre that is hard to crack into.
Yeah.
Dune has allowed me to at least start dipping my toes into that neighborhood and enjoying my time with it a little bit. But again, that's because I spent 600,000 hours reading the books and listening and everything else beforehand.
Right.
Maybe you feel differently. Maybe you don't want to get into a 4X that way. That's fine.
Right.
But I like Dune Spice Wars. I just haven't played enough of it. Every time I've played it, I've had a good time, but it's also a lot of thinking. And right now, I don't need to think.
Yeah.
I want to stop thinking, start drinking. I kid, I don't drink.
That's right.
That's a sitcom joke from the UK in 2006, I think, is what
There you
that
go.
is. If you know, you know. If you don't, good luck.
Yeah.
I like it. I want to play it more, but I don't want to finish a 12-hour shift at work, come home, and then sit in front of my PC again.
Run the Harkonnen Empire.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Yes.
How dare you assume that I would ever play as one of those beasts?
Hey, that's the only one I knew. You're like off the top of my head.
Dude, Atreides, man. It's the main
biscuits.
dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Or you could have said Fremen. Or, the
yeah.
Trading Guild. Or the Smugglers. Or
Gotta say
any
the
one of
bad
the other
guys.
ones.
Biscuits.
Yeah, you didn't.
I gotta keep doing my homework.
I know where Boston's heart lies. That's the most important thing we've learned from this episode.
That's right. Rule 2s.
Well, yeah, Dune Spice Wars is fun. I probably will play it when I don't have to work so much. Nimp.
Yeah, Nimp, what are your honorable mentions for 2023? Do you have 2, most importantly?
No, I have 3.
Okay.
So, my first one is Diablo 4. I enjoyed playing the game, but I put like 80 hours into Diablo 3 this year alone, so I could get the platinum for that game, so that way I could be ready for 4. And what came of that is I feel like 3 is a way better game than 4 is.
Yeah.
Right now, I mean, 3 didn't come out this way. 3 built up to this. So that is my hope for 4, is that it's going to build up where something will catch my interest and I'll want to replay it again.
Right.
I still haven't done anything with like my I forget what they even call it now, but like that next phase of leveling that you hit once you hit level 50.
Paragon?
Yeah, I would say your Paragon path
Yeah.
maybe or whatever. I still haven't done anything with that.
Right.
Like, I still have a Necromancer that has like 3 Paragon points that I can pump into it, and I'm like, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't bother me right now. So hopefully, I still want to play a Druid at some point, but hopefully something, either downtime or we just stop getting video games for a little bit in 2024.
Right.
I would like to go back and eventually play it again, but right now it was fine.
Nice.
The next game that I had was Forspoken.
Oh yeah.
That was another one that I played and beat this year, and again, it was fine. Story wasn't anything major to write home about. The twist was, if you were paying attention, seemed like it was easy to pick up before you even got halfway through the game, which is fine. The running around, jumping around, the gliding and stuff that you were doing was fine. The combat was fine. So overall, it was a fine game. Just not something my list was cutthroat, so there was no way Forspoken was staying on this list for me this year. Yeah. The last game I had was Live a Live, and man, this one was hard to cut because it is a classic JRPG that I really enjoyed playing. The only thing that kind of hung me up was that the final chapter suffers from what is now trope, but then was still new. But the final dungeon is basically the length and breadth of the whole game up to this point, and everything that you were doing okay with is now all of a sudden 100 times harder than it was the first time you went up to it. So now you got to grind, and now you got to find these weapons and stuff so that you have a chance. But that's kind of what I liked about it too, is that it kept me on my toes. Where I'm like at the point where I'm fighting the final boss, I've got my party completely like separated from each other so that I don't get hit with an AoE, and I win that fight on a hope and a prayer that I just happened to do something at the right moment to confuse the boss. So yeah, those are my 3 honorable mentions.
I actually have 4 this year. I'm gonna start with Suika game, watermelon game that came out on Switch this year. This is still a game we are playing pretty consistently in my house.
Drop it in and match it thing, right?
Yeah, the like merging fruits sort of thing. It's like
My son just installed it and started playing.
Yeah, it's like $2, $3 on Switch or something. It's now in English. It originally wasn't, but it's totally taken over our house. Still, it's it. I really love it, partially because it reminds me of kind of gaming when we were growing up, where it's like, yeah, this is a single player game, but as soon as you finish a game, you're going to pass a controller to the next person, and then you're going to cheer them on as they're playing, or boo the game when they physics messes with them or something.
Yell at them. It's like, why would you put the grape there?
I can't believe it. Yeah. So I this like just sneaked out of my top 10. This is probably like number 11 on my list, and it just missed out this year because it really is legitimately very good. And the fact that we're still playing this honestly pretty straightforward, kind of simple game this many months later is a testament to how good it is. I have to put an honorable mention here for Vampire Survivors because, like No Man's Sky, it just continues to get more cool stuff in it. I haven't even tried this like single player story things that just came out. Haven't even had time to check that out yet. But an incredible amount of patches and DLC have come out this year, and I restarted it on another platform because I wanted to play more Vampire Survivors. It's not out on PlayStation platforms yet, and when that happens, I'll start it over a third time again. Like Vampire Survivors is just
for the tremendous amount of $5.
That's right.
And then when you add the DLC, $10.
That's right. Yeah, it's we've talked about Vampire Survivors so much, but it really is the perfect kind of wind down game where it's like, yep, I got 30 minutes, do a run of Vampire Survivors, I'm good. Yep. Tron Identity. This is that kind of visual novel, choose your own adventure Tron thing that came out this year.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that came out.
Yeah, I really wish I finished it. I got about, it's a very short game, and I got about halfway through it, and then it's on the Switch, so I never really finished it, which is like my problem more than the game. But I really give it a lot of credit for doing something different than Tron. It wasn't just like, oh, it's a first-person shooter where you're throwing your disc, or oh, it's a racing game on the light cycles. You know, it's not that stuff we've seen done poorly 10 different times. It was a detective story where you're going into a different server and trying to figure out who did this heist, essentially. And it's a Bithell Games game, so you know it's going to be good. Because they made one of the best games that just has like 6 different shapes in it. And it's like one of the most emotionally effective games of all time. And my last one here, Exoprimal. I didn't want to put this on my list because I didn't spend enough time with it. But man, I had so much fun with it each and every time I played it. It really is the dumbest idea for a game. It's just here's a third-person shooter where hundreds of dinosaurs are pouring out of portals, coming right at you. You just got to mow them down and go faster than the other team. And the idea that they're telling a cohesive and interesting story about that explains the dinosaurs in a way that is pretty interesting, was kind of the cherry on top of that one.
It had an interesting game flow with it, where it's like, play 5 to 10 matches. Here's some story. Here's some files. Go play some more matches.
Yeah, here's another cutscene after you play a little bit more, and then you're just like, okay. And it's like, and now here are their raids. All right, let's go. It's like, wait, sorry, what?
Everybody being like, did you see the T-Rex yet? And like, no. And the next game you play, it's like, oh.
Oh, for real. Yeah, Exoprimal, it's another one of those games just like Remnant from the Ashes. If you have a bunch of friends to play, it's the perfect like turn off your brain and lightly compete with another team sort of thing. And it's the perfect Game Pass game. Because it's if this hadn't been on Game Pass, I don't think I would have ever spent any money checking it out. And I checked it out and was like, oh, okay, yes, this is legitimately a very dumb and very good game. So good job, Exoprimal. You are dumb and interesting, which is the best combo here. All right, let's talk about Community's Game of the Year. As with every year, I go to the Discord and I say, hey, everyone, I've made a list of the biggest games this year. Go rate them. Go pick your favorite game of the year. And
Except for
everybody did,
Starfield.
except for Starfield, because I knew I always forget one big game every year. Starfield was the one for this year. Let's do the top 3 here. Number 3 is Lies of P, which is the if you're just joining us, is the Pinocchio Soulsborne, which is still a wild sentence, but
Stupidly good.
yeah, turned out to be a surprise hit this year.
It's not on my list because I haven't beaten it yet.
Right. Check next year's list.
Yeah.
Second was Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom, one of the biggest games this year. Not too surprising. And also not surprising, number 1 is Baldur's Gate 3 by a landslide. Like it wasn't even close. Y'all really loved Baldur's Gate 3, and I would too, which is why I haven't played it.
So apparently the mind flayers just get to you if you play that game.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's hit the big list here. We're going to talk about our top 10 of 2023. We're going to go in reverse order as usual. We're going to go around the horn, starting with Moon. What is your number 10 game of 2023?
My number 10 is AEW Fight Forever. This is a wrestling game that is not like other wrestling games, aka it is not like WWE's wrestling game. Yes, I know that there are other wrestling games, but they don't come out on my platform, so shush. It is what I wanted. It is that style of wrestling game from when I was a child. The No Mercy, the Def Jam, like WCW Nitro, like style of game. And the fact that it includes all of my, like, it happens to be from the promotion that I'm most invested in, especially this year. And it also happens to have characters that are not just big brawny meatheads who have a point to prove. Like, Orange Cassidy is in the game, and his special move is he puts his hands in his pockets and he does more damage when his hands are in his pockets. Like, how they make that in a wrestling game is insane to me. But the fact that they've done it, and it controls like how I want it to control. It has the dumbest / B movie like career mode where you're going around, you're doing the tours and you're going around, but also at the same time you're going into restaurants and getting like lessons about the food in specific cities, and then meeting up with other wrestlers and doing dumb photo ops. Like, it is a weird game that I genuinely have enjoyed playing. I haven't played enough of it is my problem, because like I'll play it, enjoy it, and then not play it for a while, then play it, enjoy it, not play it for a while. But it feels like a game that I remember playing when I was a kid. And it has the wrestling I prefer, which is something that you could only do in previous like WWE games by basically downloading those wrestlers. Using the customization option in the WWE games is incredible. Like, you could always have that option, and like being able to create your own wrestlers was great. The creative wrestling in this is not great, but that's fine because I'm enjoying how stupid it is. And like the times I've played it with Rob, I've had dumb fun just trying to experiment and smashing each other off things and seeing what happens. AEW Fight Forever is my number 10, and I enjoy it a lot. You might not. That's fine. It's my list.
Nimp, what is your number 10?
My number 10 game is Final Fantasy 16. So, I really like the music in this game. Square just seems to hit the music no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
Boston's playing a game that's nothing but Square music. I'm jealous because my son has it and I don't have time to play it.
That's right.
The story, it's fine. It's cool. If you've played a Final Fantasy, chances are it's almost the same story. You know, there's some castle, something that needs help. You go and help it. Things aren't as they seem. You continue on with your game. But the interesting thing is the whole summoning system with this, where your character Clive turns into Ifrit, and you have like these knockout, drag out boss fights with other summons, and it's cool that it's all nice and cinematic. It actually kind of brings back like the PS2 era of, hey, you're gonna sit here and watch this movie, and then there's just gonna be a QTE that pops up that you have to interact with, and it's kind of hard to keep up with some of those QTEs because there's so much stuff happening on the screen. There's so many things flashing that it's like sometimes you just miss that it's telling you to hit square like multiple times, and then you failed your thing. And that's kind of a drawback for me because a lot of the boss fights, the bigger boss fights, kind of devolved into that where you are fighting this enemy and then it turns into this cinematic, beautiful movie with QTE in it. And that is how you beat the bosses, through that movie, not through you prepping and fighting in the earlier half of the fight. So that, for me, was kind of a weird choice. I hate that it's still an action RPG. I'm not the biggest fan. It's not that I don't like them. It's just Final Fantasy has always been, to me, a turn-based thing, which Square seems to be like, no, if you want turn-based, you come look at Dragon Quest. Meanwhile, they haven't released a numbered Dragon Quest game in years,
Right.
So I don't like that it's action. I don't like that there's not an actual party system. You don't really do anything with your party member. They're just kind of there. Outside of that, though, the action is pretty much what you would, if you played the Final Fantasy VII remake, it's pretty much that same system. So if you liked or disliked that, it's the same system in this game. Do with it as you will with that information. But outside of that, I liked the music. I liked the locations. The story was fine. I liked the fact that they just bring in Ultima and they're like, hey, this is like an alien kind of thing that you have to deal with. Deal with it. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do with this information right now. Right. Oh, and speaking of dealing with information, I forget what the actual system's called, but that journaling system that they have in there that everyone absolutely loves, where at any moment you can click a button and it shows you like these bubbles of, okay, this person was just brought up. Who is that person? And it gives you like a little brief description of, this is so-and-so and this is why they're important. Or like, hey, this is a town that was brought up, and it gives you like a little thing of that. It's a cool system. I don't know why everybody was all like, oh, this is the best thing ever since sliced bread. And I'm like, dude, just pay attention to the story. Like, it wasn't doing anything hardcore here. Right. But for things like, this would be great to pop up in like a Lord of the Rings game where you're like, 9 generations deep into elven lore trying to figure out what's happening. Yeah, that would be great. But for this, But anyway, it is a fine game. Number 10 in Final Fantasy. Sorry, I'm all jumbled up now. Final Fantasy 16 is in my number 10 spot.
There you go.
Too many numbers.
That's right.
Yeah, too many numbers. So yeah, it is a fine game. I would pick it up. It sounds like there's a bunch of DLC that's coming out for it now. So I might check that out. But yeah, that's all I got.
My number 10 is The Bookwalker Thief of Tales. We played this for Game Club this year. This is the game I probably had the hardest time figuring out where it goes on my list because I really like it, but it could also be on the Alpha Protocol list for this year because it is.
That is true.
It is kind of weird and has a bunch of sharp edges to it. It is a heist game where you are a disgraced author that can no longer use his writing powers, so he is tasked to retrieve relics from inside of books. So you're hopping into different books, living out the events inside of those books to go steal some sort of powerful relic and then bring it back to the people that have hired you. It largely takes place from like an isometric standpoint, so you're kind of solving pretty light puzzles throughout a bunch of levels where it's like, oh, how do I open this door? Oops, it has 4 symbols on it. Better go find those 4 symbols. That sort of thing. None of it's too heavy lifting, but the sheer creativity of each individual level was really great. Like, they have a shockingly interesting kind of Harry Potter magical school level. There's one level where they want you to go get Excalibur. It's like, oh, okay, great, here we go. And it turns out to just be this wandering spaceship like thousands of years in the future that's ruled by this aggressive AI, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure, all right, yeah. So like all of that was really interestingly written. The story was really really interesting. There was a really fun moment in the first level that I kind of wish was maybe in the last level instead. Would have had kind of a bigger punch, but um, I am happy we played it. This is very much a game club game for us, where it's like, never heard of this game before. It's on Game Pass. Let's check it out. Whoops, it's actually really good. So my
Yep.
number 10 is The Bookwalker, Thief of Tales. Let's move on to number 9. How about you, Moon?
Bookwalker should probably be in my honorable mentions, if I'm completely honest, but it's not because I forgot about it
There
because
you go.
my lists are not appropriate. My number 9 is Vemba, which is another game club game we did. You might notice a
Theme.
Right. Theme here.
Yep.
Stuff we did for other shows makes it on this list because that's what I had time to play.
Yep.
Ooh, 6 minutes a day. Vemba is an incredible story told really, really well. Really makes me want to do experimentation with cooking, except I don't have the money to potentially waste it, so I can't. It is a fantastic art style. It is a great story. It is short. You can probably get through it in like 2 hours tops. And y'all should really play it. Like it is a fantastic tale about life as an immigrant in a country where you're a first generation, I think is the correct terminology.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to say a whole lot more because
Yeah.
kind of lean straight into the spoilers at that point. And
Right.
I think going in blind is what made this game stand out for me this year. And we did a game club episode on it, so you should go listen to that kind of episode.
Yeah.
Vemba is really, really good. And that is my number 9.
Nimp, what is your number 9?
All right. My number 9 is Atelier Riza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key. I know Moon loves these titles.
Woo,
yeah.
woo, woo.
Oh, man. So, for better and for worse, this is not that different from the first Atelier Riza game. For better because you already know going into it, if I've played the first one, did I enjoy playing the first one? Yes. Okay, let's play the second one. Did I enjoy what they did with the original system, what they added to it? Yes. Then move on to the third one because it's the same system with a couple additional things added to it, some quality of life changes and stuff like that. If you played the first one, you're like, this is not for me. Don't bother playing Atelier. It's all pretty much the same.
Right.
The only difference is I would say these are the easier ones to get into because there isn't like the time limit for like the shops and stuff like that, which I kind of miss. But I'm broken that way. But anyway, I really like how they presented the story for this one because since it is the last one, because they tend to only do 3 games per main protagonist, and then they change to a new protagonist for the next group. So I really like how in this one you're kind of doing like you're revisiting places that you went to in the first 2 games. And I had brought up before earlier while I was playing them, it's like one of the first areas that you go to is an area in the first game that's like almost the end of the game, and you're walking through that area like it's no problem. Meanwhile, in the first game, you were struggling to get through that thing towards the end of the game. So it was cool to have that kind of perspective of, okay, the characters have grown, they've matured, they've learned, they're better at combat, they've learned their skills, and they've applied it in their life and what they're doing here. So you kind of get like so the characters have grown up and they're moving on, and this is kind of like the farewell tour of, this is the world, this is everything that everyone's done, and this is potentially what they'll move on to. I will say the only real negative that I have with this game is the key system that they added, because it doesn't really add a whole lot. I barely interacted with it because there wasn't really a need to. So it kind of felt like they had an idea that they were going to do with it, and then they kind of pulled back on it, and then it just turned into a, well, if you want to kind of mess with this. But once you got past the midway point of the game, it kind of wasn't really worth dabbling with anymore. But yeah, it's still a great series. I love the characters. I'm looking forward to see what they do next. But yeah, Adelaide Riza 3 or Atelia, depending on what side of the ocean you're on. Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key, my number 9 spot.
There you go. My number 9 is Diablo 4. This was another one that I had a hard time putting on my list because I had a fun time playing it, and I think it does some interesting stuff to kind of move the Diablo games forward a little bit, and I think it has some interesting gear stuff. It has some cool shared world stuff. It's not an MMO, but it's maybe a little bit more than a shared world thing. I really liked.
Always be online.
Yeah, like there's a lot of, you're running across a lot of other people. There's world events and like Destiny style kind of events that are going on, world bosses and stuff.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the. It's very nice to have this cross-play and cross-save. That stuff worked really well and really naturally. I think one or two times we played it, cross-play, just hopped into someone on your friends list. We were all chatting on Discord, and I think we were on 3 different platforms, and it just all worked, which is exactly how you want it to be. I think unlike a lot of the other Diablo games, once I beat the game, I was kind of done. And I was hoping that the seasonal stuff would keep me going, or at least kind of keep me coming back more often, a lot like it did eventually in Diablo 3 once seasons hit over there. But I kind of felt like I had my fill so far by the time I finished that game. I don't know. I'm still struggling to figure out why, and that might be why it's kind of lower on my list here of like, was it too long? Was it not interesting enough? Did I not get any loot, etc., etc.? Like I don't know if I could put my finger on exactly one thing, but usually by the time you finish these games, it's like, all right, let's go into the next world tier. Let's do the next difficulty. Let's get into the seasons. I've got a laundry
Check
list
out a
of
new
things.
character. Yeah.
Right, like I've got a laundry list of things to do now that I've finished it, and now that the game has opened up, and I just kind of deleted it off my PS5. So it was weird, but I did really enjoy what I played until I was done, and then I was kind of done, which is odd. So that's Diablo 4 in my number 9. Moon, what's your number 8?
Oh, my number 8 is Spirit Hunters. Insert the full title here,
Infinite
please.
Horde.
Thank you.
Yep.
This year, when I needed a game that I didn't need to think about, when I didn't need to pay attention to, when I wasn't one-handing it in Forza Horizon, I was playing this game because this I could also do a one-hand thing with, to be completely honest. At first, it is very mobile gamey. Like that's how it feels, which is fine because I think it came from a mobile game. It came from a mobile game originally. After I got past that poor judgment on my part, I actually really started to enjoy the fact that the game it's a Vampire Survivors, it's one of those type of games, but it guides you exactly where you need to go for the next thing. It tells you what you need to do to get better, to get stronger, to get faster. Higher, further, faster, baby. And it does such a good job of its presentation in doing that, and then the fact that you can get modded skills, so your your normal power-ups become super power-ups because of like these mods that you have unlocked through the skill tree, and then the difference that they can make is quite great. It was just that go-to for me where it's like, yeah, I'm good. I can do a 15-minute. I've got 15 minutes, so half of my daily playtime I have here. So I can sit down, do a run, feel good, and then move on to probably bed at that point, if I'm honest. But yeah, y'all, again, we did this. We roguelike it. Y'all should go listen to that. You
Yep.
should listen to them talking about it on the regular show.
Yep.
Mr. I have a problem. I beat the game in a week.
Yeah.
Thing. It is a really good game, and thanks to Boston, by the way, for pointing out that this came out this year, because I wouldn't have known that otherwise.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
My number 8 is Spirit Hunters Infinite Horde. Y'all should check it out, and it's cheap too. Like if you're looking for something on a budget, this is a good way to go.
Yep. Nymph, what is your number 8?
My number 8 game is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Oh man. So this is a great sequel to the first game. And I kind of like what I was saying with some of the other ones. I like that there's character growth in here. We see characters from the first game in here, and they've been through some stuff, and it's not all roses. Like this isn't the Star Wars thing that you come to because you want to feel good about what Jedis are, and you know justice always prevails. No. I like the new styles that they have in here as well, where it's like you can have the giant greatsword equivalent of a lightsaber, or you can have the lightsaber blaster combo, or the dual wielding, or
the Kylo Ren sword in this is sick.
It is, and some of the powers that you get and the way that you unlock the powers, like it's just a fun game. They pretty much took what they had in the first one. They added the one thing that I complained about was that you should be able to fast travel to any rest spot, and they added that. So this is almost a perfect game. A perfect Souls game, anyway. It's not a true Souls game because it has a map, unfortunately, which is something that I love and I want every game to have, but I'm the outliner in that, so whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I really like what they did with the story. I really like interacting with the old characters again, especially when some of them have already given up. And it's like, one of them's a bartender now. And that they're just content with that.
Right.
You know, and it's like, all right, yeah, and the fight isn't for everybody. And sometimes you just get beaten down. You need to take a moment to yourself to figure out what you're fighting for. So I hope we get another one, because they left off at a pretty... We're getting close enough in the timeline where it's like, okay, this has to end soon. But I don't want it to yet, because I really, really like Cal. Like, he is just a really good character, and I like the other characters that are there. 3. Yeah. I want to see... Do Cal and the Witch get together? Like, I mean... There's no... Well, I mean... There's nothing, I will just say it right now. There's nothing really going on right now, but there are hints and there are glances. And it's like, you two just need to go on an adventure with each other, and only you two, and I will play this game. So yeah, my number 8. Go ahead.
Yes. No, it's okay. I spoiler alert, I had this on my list. I will talk about it more when it's on my list. I get to that point.
So yeah, my number 8 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Make a third one.
There you go. My number 8 is Risk of Rain Returns. And I had a hard time fitting all the games on the bottom half of this list. And this is definitely one of those, like, we get to make our own list. Like, yeah, it's a pretty faithful remaster or remake of Risk of Rain. And it doesn't really do a whole lot that's new. It does a little bit of stuff here on the periphery. But hey, it's a more accessible, more playable version of the first Risk of Rain with a little bit of stuff of Risk of Rain 2 added in, and then a whole bunch of stuff on top of it, like new characters and stuff. It's probably the one I'll talk about the least because it's just Risk of Rain again. They kind of didn't mess with it at all. They made it look better. They remastered the soundtrack a little bit, which still completely rips. It's one of the best soundtracks of all time. And it's just Risk of Rain, and it's that first game done, with a new coat of paint on it, and it's a kind of a little smoother overall. So my number 8 is Risk of Rain Returns. Moon, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Mario Brothers Wonder. If I have more time to play games, this might be higher on my list. I have not had a lot of time to play this game, so therefore I'm only like a world and a half in, maybe 2 worlds in, which is the thing that is stopping this from being even higher. Because it's been a long time since I've played a 2D Mario game. A long time. Like Wii, long time. Launch Wii, long time. And to have this come out and be not completely removed from the 2D Mario legacy, but to be such a hard left turn away from what you normally traditionally expect from that type of games. Like, yes, you run sideways and you jump, but also you get high as hell on these seeds and all of a sudden start tripping really badly in the middle of a level, of every level, it's worth saying.
Yep.
Like, and the things that they do with that, like, that sequence is almost always makes me smile. It makes me laugh. Makes me panic. Like, the sequences involving the seeds and the way they change and evolve the level. You have that entire sequence where you're running on the back of the ghost cows. Like, that is that is a weird sequence, and it's like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing now. And then on top of that, you've got all of like the many secrets, like the hidden exits, all of that stuff, which is not new, but it feels like it's been refined in this version. And the thing that probably that brought it to this level for me, like not an honorable mention or not played enough, the reason why it's on my list is because of it has new suits, new powers, new everything, like a whole bunch of new stuff. The elephant is one of the cutest, dumbest things I've ever seen.
Yep.
But it is the care. Like, this isn't just the wah wah Koopas kick their feet out with the music kind of thing. Like, it feels like they've put so much thought into it. Feels like a ground up remake with every animation redone and so much thought and care put into those animations. Like, the direction you go into a pipe, it feels like there's 4 or 5 different animations for going into a pipe. There is like a new animation for like crouch walking, which is so stupid cute, it's unbelievable. They have new edge of platforming sections. Like I mentioned it last time I played it. I just made it to the ice worlds, and the fact that they've put in an animation for them, like little slide animation as he's maintaining his balance, it's just, it feels like they came into this and they thought, hey, we haven't done one of these a good job in a while. Not a good job, but we haven't done a big refresh in a while.
Yeah.
So let's like give this everything we got and see what we can do with it. And it turns out that what they've done with it is create a really incredible 2D platforming game that I am 100% sure the second I get onto the Bowser levels, like the later worlds, I am going to be spitting blood and teeth, because I know they're going to be like inch perfect platformers that I'm going to need to be careful with. But I'm still going to respect them because they always do that slow ramp, and then those last levels are always the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
So when I get there, they'll probably make it onto my list again as the best old game. Who knows? But Mario Brothers Wonder is an incredible joy to behold, and I'm pretty sure it was only $60, not $70. So therefore, Mario Brothers Wonder, that is my number 7.
All right, Nimp, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Marvel's Midnight Suns.
Oh, yeah.
So before this game, I had no clue what the Midnight Suns were. and they're pretty much just like a tiny little group of all the misfits in the Marvel universe. Blade, Magic, who used to be on the X-Men, Wolverine eventually shows up at some point, but you pretty much create your own character who is kind of superhuman, kind of has mythical powers, and it was kind of an interesting take on the Marvel universe. And I hate the fact that everyone hates this game seemingly, because Firaxis developed this game and had been saying the entire time, hey, this is not Marvel XCOM.
Right.
And everyone's like, so it's XCOM. And they're like, no, it is not XCOM.
Again.
And every time this game would come up, they would keep telling people, this is not XCOM. And then the game releases and everyone's like, this isn't XCOM. And we're like, we know. We never marketed that way. In fact, our marketing was, this is not XCOM.
Right.
And that just, for some reason, because of that, everyone just kind of crapped all over this game. But with all the characters that you get in this, it is really fun to play. I know a lot of people also didn't like how it's got the card system in it, which didn't bother me at all, because you just created your deck. And I mean, I'm a big fan of those kind of games. Bat and Kratos is like the best game ever. I have to buy that remake still. But the card system, you just create your deck for whatever attacks, whatever abilities that you want each person to use. You move them on there like a tactics game, and they all move and fight in their own unique ways. Like, none of them fight the same way. And with the added bonus of being able to like push and pull enemies into situations, or shove them off of buildings, or like drop a lamp, or a lamp post on them, throw a car at them, there was a lot of interesting and different ways you could go about fighting, even just like the general run-of-the-mill, like random encounter fights. You could do them completely different ways. And it was overall is a really fun game. I still one day will buy the season pass when I have free time, because I know that adds Deadpool, it adds Storm, and it adds 2 more, and I forget who they are. But it's just having those extra characters and messing around with their, what they come with, sounds like it'd be a really fun time. But yeah, it's just a fun game, and I don't don't understand why everyone hates it. It's just stupid. So my number 7 goes to Marvel's Midnight Suns. Deserves better by the video game community.
Right. My number 7 is Power Wash Simulator. This got console releases this year. Also see my spiel at the beginning of whatever goes on the list, whatever. But this is another fantastic Zen game this year. It turns out to be way more game than I was really expecting. This is way more levels than I would have even anticipated. I thought this was going to be like, 5-7 levels. Yeah, woo. No, it's way more, and that's even before they started adding all the DLC, like the Lara Croft stuff and the Final Fantasy VII stuff and SpongeBob and all that stuff.
They just added a Christmas one recently.
They did, yeah. And a Back to the Future one. Like they're putting a ton of. They have a whole roadmap for this game now. But at the end of the day, it is exactly what it looks like. It is a click a button and then just wash literally everything in each and every one of these ever increasingly bigger and bigger environments. And it's just one of those games where it's just like, yep, I need to turn my brain off for a while and kind of make progress in a game, but I don't want to play Dune Spice Wars, I want to play whatever the exact opposite of that game is. I want to follow
the trajectory of things.
Yeah, like I just want to clean a skate park, and I did it, yay. And unfortunately, there's not really much more to say about Power Wash Simulator, because that's kind of it. And anything else I would say would be a spoiler about the story, oddly enough, which is not a thing I would have expected to care about in Power Wash Simulator, but it's really good. This is another one that is really cheap. They keep putting out free levels and stuff for it, and it's Power Wash Simulator is just really good, and it's when you need a game like this where you just turn your brain off, Power Wash Simulator's gotcha. Yep. Moon, what's your number 6?
So my number 6 is Payday 3. A franchise I was aware of and deliberately avoided and ignored because by the time I heard of it, Payday 2 was already out and had $600 bundles, including all of the DLC. So at that point, I was like, I'm good, thanks. I don't do DLC as a baseline, so I'm good without that game. It turns out Payday 3 is 100% my jam. Because Payday 3 is a first person, and hold on, I know this is it. Bear with me here. Payday 3 is a first person puzzle game. Because it's the thing I love about Hitman games is the automated systems, the marionette like house that you have to go into and figure out a way to make it to your target and then kill your target and leave. That is the thing I like about Hitman, is learning those systems, then figuring out how to bypass the systems or break them in some cases, and how to do it as efficiently and as smoothly as possible. Payday 3 is the exact same thing, except you have to steal something. The biggest difference between Payday 3 and Hitman is when things go loud, you can stay alive, which is my favorite part of Payday 3 is, oh, things went south, who cares? We can still shoot our way out of this thing. And I have gotten, especially over the past couple of weeks, I have gotten into this specific cycle of going into this one level because I want to beat this level. Is a hard level to beat, and I want to beat it with it fully stealth without ever being spotted. And I want to, there's an achievement for doing on a specific difficulty and getting every single bag. I might need help with that one because there's a skill that you can get that will help on that. But I'm going through it and I'm like, okay, so this is me. I'm learning the systems, learning the layouts, learning what the trick to solving this particular Rubik's Cube is. And then it gets even better when you have other people in there, because then you're both learning, you're both doing things, and you're both figuring out the different paths. I think last a couple of weeks ago, myself and Rob jumped in and did the very first level on the hardest difficulty, and we did it all stealth.
Wow.
And we got every single bag except for one, which was covered in paint because I was too slow. And that's fine. I made a mistake. We can do it again. But it was one of those things where we went in, we intended to do it as stealthily as we could, so we did. We went in, we started doing it stealthy. We're communicating, we're doing the puzzles, we're doing the camera switches, the whereabout of the people kind of thing. And then we got there and we did it. We end up sitting there having a conversation on the roof of this bank as to how we're going to get the bags into the truck when there's a guard who does a patrol right there. So it's like, well, how about you go down and I'll just start tossing the bags to you so that when he goes back on his patrol, we've got all the time we need to start. You can throw them in the truck and we can get out. And it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's try that and see if it works. And guess what? If it doesn't, we've still got the time. We need to then go loud and do what we need to do. Like, it has been that game that has clicked with me specifically at the back part of this year about just wanting to go in and focus on a puzzle and solve it. It just so happens that in this case, the puzzle is a first-person shooter puzzle, and there's a lot of stuff going around that you could do, and there's a skill tree and skills that you can have that will make certain parts easier and certain parts harder. That's why I need help for the jewelry job. I don't know, man. I love this game. I love Payday 3. I love playing it with my friends. I like playing it solo too, which is something I was not expecting. Like just going in and poking at the levels myself is something that I'm enjoying doing. Even if I don't get a reward from it, I'm still spending some time learning about the sequences and the actions and everything else that goes on. Of course, I've only done this with the small levels. I haven't done this with the art gallery yet, which is 4 floors of nightmares.
That warehouse or whatever.
Yep, or the warehouse level where you have to steal the AI tubes or whatever they're called. Like, so I'm slowly going through the levels and figuring it out and starting to get better and better at them. And doing so has been a genuine break for me, both in having fun playing myself and with my friends. So My number 6 is Payday 3.
All right, Nimp, what is your number 6?
My number 6 is Eternites.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that this game is a short Persona-like game. That is number 1 best feature. But this game, I think, does, like, Persona has always kind of been like this anime hardcore, well, not hardcore, but anime difficult game if you don't follow the system correctly, with like a little bit of horror. Nothing, horror themed more, not like an actual horror game. Whereas this game actually kind of in the beginning is very much a horror game. And that lightens up as you continue on. This isn't like a Resident Evil or a Dead Space kind of game, but there are, in the very beginning, before you even are able to fight things, there are things that you have to run away from, and there are certain situations that you can't interact with an enemy, or it's just going to kill you outright. You don't even get a chance to fight it. And normally I dislike those kind of things, but this one, it kind of presented it in a different, with like a puzzle approach, where it's like, okay, these things are going to start chasing you, and you have to figure out the most direct route to where you're getting at, and we're going to keep throwing little things at you here and there to kind of freak you out. But as long as you stay steady and continue on the path, you'll be fine. And oops, the game is super dark, and you didn't realize that there was something there, and you're walking into a box, and now you've been caught. That is one criticism I have, is that this game is super dark in places, and there is not a way to adjust, brightness or gamma or anything like that. So you just kind of have to deal with it. But the whole idea that at the very beginning of the game, your character gets his arm chopped off, and then it just kind of turns into like this energy weapon that you get to use due to reasons, is kind of an interesting idea. And how you go about upgrading your character, because when you're fighting these enemies, you're not leveling up. You're not getting experience for defeating an enemy, but you have to get through interacting with certain events and interacting with the other characters in the game. You start unlocking, or you start gaining, like these essence. There's a black and a white essence, and the black essence you can use on your own character. White essences you use on these support characters, who then can unlock skills that you can use as the main character. And the cool thing, and something that they point out earlier, is that while these other characters are following you around, they don't actually fight. You're the only one that's doing the fighting. But also, the enemy completely ignores them. So you don't have to worry about, oh crap, this person's getting their crap beat out of them, and I have to run over there and save them. They're just there so that way you can use their support ability and their passives. And that's really nice, because that could have been a really bad situation, especially with some certain boss fights. The story's not anything to write home about. It's fine for what happens. End of the world apocalypse scenario. You end up on a train. You're going to go save the world. Let's go fight a god. Most JRPGs.
Right.
But I mean, it was, considering that it was also a one-person team, for the most part. They did have outside help with different things, but for it being a one-person team, for it being a short game, I feel like that they kind of hit all the major points that you would expect from like a Persona game or from a bigger RPG. So I think they did a really good job with this. Some of the animation looks kind of wonky, but again, it's passable. And I kind of, one day I would like to do a New Game Plus on this, because there is a plot event at the end of the game that I'm not going to talk about, but I did kind of screw myself out of something and made the game harder for myself, which I didn't realize that's what I was doing. It was still fine. I still got through it, but boy, did I have to change my tactics at the end of the game so I could beat the game. And that's also not something that you get out of most games, where you're not having to like completely change what you've been doing to get to this part. So it was a lot of fun to play. So Eternites is my number 6 on my list.
My number 6 is Cocoon. which you'll keep hearing this from us. We played in Game Club this year. This was the you play as a little insect and you're juggling a lot of orbs. You're hopping in and out of orbs that contain different worlds. I knew I was going to love this game then the first 15-20 minutes when your part of the trailer was always like, oh yeah, you're going in and out of these worlds, and the first time you do that you actually come out of the first world that you're in. My assumption was, oh yeah, you're gonna find your first orb and hop in, but you're already in one of them and you're coming out of it to then manipulate the rest of the game around that. I love the sound design. I love the style of the game. I love the majority of the puzzles. I think for me personally, there were some pretty big speed bumps around the middle of the game where I'm like, wait, what are you asking me to do wait, what? Oh, okay, I think I kind of get it now. And some stuff at the end of the game maybe could have been communicated a little bit better about exactly what you're supposed to do, because the number of plates you're spinning by the end is kind of a lot. So some of the stuff that makes Cocoon great in the beginning of the game is you having a small area to explore and experiment with, where you're like, oh, okay, so if I do this, the environment does that. Okay, well, what if I do this? Oh, it does that. So the solution is this. Okay, cool, I got it. And most of the game feels okay because you have these self-contained, very small puzzles, but as they get bigger and bigger, they get more complex, I think it's sort of you start seeing the threads a little bit too much, and I think it becomes like a little bit too complicated, at least for me, of like, oh, I've got to do this and then that and then this and then do this and this other thing, and wait, hold on, I'm losing a little bit of it here. But I think when Cocoon is really good, it's really, really good. And when it sort of stumbles a little bit, it's still excellent. It's, the puzzles are designed by the team that did Inside and Limbo. So you sort of have that pedigree there, and it definitely really, it very much feels like it. And I think it's one of those puzzle games that manages to avoid the thing of like, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I can't figure this out. Oh, I figured it out, I'm genius. You don't ever get that point where you're like, oh, I'm just too stupid to figure this out. You're like, oh, I just haven't poked and prodded, I haven't played around with the game enough to solve it. Not that I'm stupid, I just haven't figured out the problem yet.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that that this did that.
I'm still hung up that the sink is going to do something, and it's related to this puzzle.
That's right. I just got to figure it out.
Yep.
So I really liked Cocoon. I thought it was really great. I thought it was a really cool exploration of puzzle games, and something definitely very unique that we don't often see. Moon, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is we played it for Game Club. It's Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Came out on the Xbox this year. And if this makes Boston's list, I'm sure that this will be a note echoed by him.
It didn't make my list, to be clear, because I sort of forgot. Go listen to our Game Club of the Year episode. I'll give it my flowers on that episode.
Because I had a very similar experience to Boston, where I don't think I have taken a harder left turn. It's like, well, a harder U-turn.
Yep.
Between the marketing for the game and the actual playing of the game. It was insane how great this game is. I mean, let's just get out the way. The game looks beautiful.
Yep.
And looks incredible. It plays okay. I had to switch some of the controls around. You can check out I think it's in our Game Club channel, is my personal recommendation for the control settings. And that's on Discord, if you're interested. But once I've spent like an hour fixing that, the control fine. I got used to whatever little issue was left. I like the presentation of that game, the way it's an anime as anime can be kind of story, which is fine. I get it. Like that's what it is. But so much about it is fantastic. Learning all about the Japanese spirits and learning about like the lore, the characters that you play, and the people who you are possessed by. Is great. Boston still has to play it again in English because Steve Bloom is one of the voices. So
Yes,
have fun
that's
with
true.
that, Boston. I don't know. Like I have enjoyed so much about playing this game. I even went and did all of the stupid collectibles and everything else. It harkens back to the good old days of BioWare when the side quests were the things to pay attention to. Because oh boy, does this game have some of the best side quests I played this year.
Yep.
Including but not limited to Musum's recommendation of playing the DLC, which is the school.
Yeah,
Squeak,
that
squeak,
school
squeak.
sucks. Yeah.
It sucks, but it sucks in the best way for
Oh,
a
yeah.
game about horror game. Like, you
Yeah.
know, it's it's so good and terrible all at the same time. Ghostwire Tokyo, it couldn't have been further from what I expected, and that's a good thing. Like I
Yeah.
gave it its shot, and it's appropriately in both cases it is getting its flowers, and I am more than happy to see this game do well. Yeah, my number 5 is Ghostwire Tokyo.
Nimp, what's your number 5?
My number 5 is Little Witch No Betta.
Mm.
So this was something that came out on Steam Early Access years ago, and I bought it there, played it while it was in Early Access. It's like, this is really cool. I'm going to keep an eye out on this. And then around the time when I was thinking, I haven't heard anything about this game, that's when they announced, oh, we're releasing a physical edition on consoles now.
Mm.
So I bought that. And I also have my Little Witch plushie up here. So this is baby's first Dark Souls, and I mean that in the most positive light. If you have never played a Souls-like and you're interested, but you're kind of afraid of like everything that comes with, this is a more simplified version of a Souls game. You're not picking a class because you play as a witch. You have magic. There's 4 different kinds. There's a fireball one, which is like your standard attack. There's an ice one that's basically like your submachine gun, rapid fire thing. Your lightning one, which is your long range, like sniper kind of shot. And there's one more spell that I can't remember off the top of my head, and I will probably remember after I move on. But anyway, there's already a class picked for you, and the stats that you're upgrading there's only a couple of them, and it tells you right there, hey, you want more stamina to use magic, upgrade this. You want to have more health, upgrade this. It's also very, very cutesy. You're for the most part fighting shadows, and then you upgrade to dolls that you end up fighting, but nothing horrific. But it does still present a decent challenge. It's not something that you're going to beat your head up against on normal mode. If you pick this game up and you're like, I want something with a challenge, go play hard mode. That will kick your teeth in as soon as you start it. So, but overall, it was a fun experience to have with it, especially when you upgrade a lot more of the magical upgrades that you can get. Eventually, you get to a point where you start floating to glide to different spots on the map. The story is really kind of cool, where it asks you the question, what is life? And it actually gets kind of deep into it as you progress through the game. It's also a fairly short game. I'm trying to remember. I think it's for sure less than 20 hours, maybe right around 15, less than 15, which is another bonus because usually Souls games are anywhere from 30 to 80 hours, depending. But it is just a fun, like, this is something that I could play parts of it around, my younger child, because it is more anime colorful. The enemies aren't, like these headless things coming at me. There are dull sections later on where, they get kind of creepy. Probably maybe not let your child see that section, but in the beginning, you're just fighting like these glob shadows. So, and you have a cat that's talking to you. So, overall, it is a very good game. It was also made by a very small team as well. There was a lot of extras that they've added since I had done the early access for it. Um, I don't know what the team is thinking of doing now, but the ending does kind of leave the option of there being another game. But if there isn't, it leaves off in a pretty solid place. So
Nice.
my number 5 goes to Little Witch No Betta.
My number 5, like it sort of breaks my heart a little bit, is Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Also, sort of in the same spot as Moon, where it's really great, and I just wish I played more of it. I try not to put games I haven't finished on my list, but this one is kind of a special case, just because the thing I love the most about this is it's a really great platforming Mario game. Like, it's a really solid platformer. Everything works super well. It even has the little the badges, the modifiers you can equip before you go into levels that sometimes changes stuff a little bit, sometimes changes stuff quite a bit. You have all these different characters you can play as that don't really change anything too much. Some of them are invulnerable at the kind of the back of the list, but none of them. It's not like Mario 2 where they control differently or have different strengths or whatnot. But the thing that I liked the most about Wonder is how it plays with expectations so much. And the majority of the stuff that plays with expectations are the Wonder Seeds that you find in the level, where it just flips the level upside down, or now the level's underwater, or now you have waves.
Piranha plants.
Yeah, like you have waves of enemies that are coming at you, or the lights are out now, or like a million. Now the game's top down, but the level still looks the same. Like there's just every level. Like Moon mentioned, the singing piranha plants. You don't run into that again. That's just that one level. And there's 100 other levels for you to run into something else that's going to be weird. It's just it's really interesting to have another Mario game that is as good of a platformer as they usually are, but then they have everything in here that's just a little off kilter. It's just a little weird in a way that Nintendo doesn't always do for the larger franchises here. And it's refreshing to see that. And like Moon said, it's refreshing to see them kind of take a second pass at, like, the game looks incredible, like most of their first party stuff does, but the level of character that this game has, where everything got upgraded and everything, like, he doesn't just walk into a pipe now. Like you said, he runs in there and his hat is left behind, so he reaches his arm out of the pipe and pulls it back to him. Like, each one of the powers has unique stuff like that. It feels like there's a million secrets hidden in every level, that if I just had the right power up, or if I just had the right badge equipped, that I'd be able to see another half of this level that I've never run into before. And the number of times I'm walking around the world map and then I walk behind something and there's another 2 or 3 levels there behind a hidden pipe I didn't see. There's just...
Yep.
I feel like you just keep peeling open this game, and it's like, here's another world that has 5 levels in it. Whoops, it actually has 20. And like one of those levels leads to a hidden area in another world you haven't been to yet, and it's really refreshing to have another Mario game like this that is really great, but it has so much in it and has so much, Moon, I think you used the right word, care. Given to it. It feels like they care about it. Feels like the team that worked on it really loved it, really turned it into this passion project. And I think that's really, really refreshing.
Yeah.
Luz, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Grounded. Which is not a 2023 game. That's fine. I don't care. It's going this high.
It's your list. It's all good.
And it's also the fact that this game seems to get a giant patch every year with the new stuff inside of it. It literally just got a brand new patch again, which lets you redesign the world,
Oh boy.
which is like, okay, that's cool. Like, I'm not going to play it, but that's still really cool. Um, Payday 3 has been my go-to game for the last 4 months of this year. My go-to game for the first 8 months of this year was Grounded. It was. I'm just gonna say right here, Boston. Like, it is a cute survival game that's free on Xbox platforms, and
It's a Game Pass game.
it's a Game Pass game, and you seem to have decided you like survival games now. So I'm just
Yeah.
saying that jump on in is what I'm saying.
That's right.
Or come on down is probably the correct terminology to use for Grounded.
That's right.
I don't know. The game look like, let's just talk, like, the game is beautiful. Like, it is insanely beautiful. I don't think I've seen a better looking game this year. Apparently the Avatar game is great, but we'll get to that. The game looks amazing. The lighting is fantastic. It has all of the base building. Everything is themed appropriately. So, like, the things you craft and build and make is all appropriately designed to look like the things that you craft it from. This isn't like a stick and a rock and then all of a sudden it looks like a metal axe kind of situation. It's like,
Right.
no. This wall is made of grass. This bow that you've got is made of insect legs and spider webs. Like, it is. I don't think I've played a game that has a theme and sticks to it or delivers on it as excellently as this game does, again and again and again. And the fact that they've got a huge story mode in there now, and the story mode takes you to different parts of the garden, and the different parts of the garden have different threats. Like you said, Boston, you were talking about the Lego game, Lego Fortnite, whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
You have to go to the sandbox to get a specific type of thing, but the problem is the sandbox is a sandbox, so it's hot during the day.
Right.
So in order to stay there during the day, you need to kill the animals that are there to get their parts so you can make heat resistant armor. Like, it is a fantastic, like, evolution of the survival / Honey I Shrunk the Kids like thing. And the fact that, like, I built a grass tower into the sky and have a zipline network going all over the garden now is just like, that's how much of a problem I have with this game. Like, jumping into it and, like, exploring that world and those levels, like, you think you found the entirety of the garden, and then before you know it, you haven't. You're miles away from anywhere, and you think you have your handle on the spiders, and, like, the wolf spiders you do, but then you run into a black widow and get wrecked. Like, it is. I have enjoyed so much about playing this game, from exploring, getting the new creatures, the new armors, what the armor's effects have. Like, the fact that you can make red ant armor and then you can go into the red ant nest and they don't attack you because they see you as one of theirs. Like, that is such a nice little touch that you don't think about until you're there and it's happening. I don't know. This is one of those games again. I played it solo and I played a whole bunch of this co-op, and, like, I have enjoyed all of my time playing this game. Like, I can't even remember when it came out of early access, but the state it's in right now is probably one of the best states I've seen it in. I cannot recommend it enough. If you like survival games, like, give it a shot. But if you want to, like, be transported to literally a different world, just like when we were kids and Honey I Shrunk the Kids came out, definitely have a look into it. And I mean, it's Game Pass, so what are you going to lose? If you have Game Pass, download it, give it a shot. Like, it's that simple. Yeah, my number 4 is Grounded.
All right, Nim, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is Anno Mutationum, which got a physical release this year on consoles. So that's how that worked into this. This was one of those weird games where it was developed to be one thing, and then a lot of things fell through, so then it just became a different thing. Originally, this was supposed to be an SCP game, Serve, Contain, Protect. All of that is open source, and if you develop something that you're planning on making money for, there's a lot of legalese you have to go through. And when they were originally developing this, they had all of those legalese figured out. And then a bunch of things happened, and those legalese got unfigured out. So it had eventually become, instead of it being an SCP game, it had to be a completely different game at this point. And what we got was Anno, which is basically you play as female Anne, who starts out as just a bartender who has the ability to fight, but no one really knows why. In this whole world, it's a pixelated 2D like Metrovania game that's set up in like a cyberpunk type universe, not the video game / 20D cyberpunk series, a
Right.
cyberpunk type world. So it had, the graphics itself were pretty interesting and pretty fun to look at. Everything is colorful. There's a lot of things going on. There's a bunch of puzzles that you're trying to figure out, all in this 2D space. And then you get about halfway through this game, and you're starting to get an inkling that, hey, there's like something happening, like kind of just under the veneer of everything. There's something else happening. And then all of a sudden it feels like it shifts into a completely different game. And then you get to the end of the game, and that's when you start to see a lot of the SCP references. There is a big one where it is definitely a thing, and it is very much the legally distinct, this is it, just not what we called it. Which is not, it's not a bad thing, but it was a lot of fun, and I didn't know a whole lot. Like, I was always interested in the marketing was always just, hey, you're playing as this woman in this pixelated 2D Metrovania game, and it's, you know, in the future. I was like, all right, cool, that's enough. That sounds like a fun game. And then I actually start playing it, and then I start getting to all these other plot twists that are happening in this game, and I'm like, this is really going places. And you've got like, I'm going to stop that thought, because that is going to spoil a bunch of things. So moving back from what I was about to say, the combat in the game is pretty cool. I think there's like 3 different weapons that you can choose from. It's basically just like a light sword, not a lightsaber, just like a cybernetic sword. There's like a dagger set, and there's like a great sword, and then there's also different kinds of guns that you can equip that have limited ammo. So you do have all these different ways that you can fight enemies, and it's all on this 2D plane. And I just really liked it. It was a really cool story. That's it. If you've never heard of this game, or if you've always been curious about it, it goes on sale pretty regularly. So I would pick it up. It's on pretty much everything except for the Switch, I believe. So, but Anno Mutationum is my number 4. Play it. Like, it is a real fun time.
My number 4 is Venba. This is, as Moon mentioned, we play this for Game Pass this year. Sorry, Game Club this year. This game wins the 2023 Game That Made Me Cry award for this year. It's really great. It is a cooking puzzle game / story game about kind of the connective powers of food. I think it is a story about immigrants and trying to find your home in somewhere different. And I think the strength of the storytelling for this game is that it, even if that's not a shared experience for you, I think it's very powerful in how it tells its story. And I think it communicates enough shared experiences for you as the player so that you can kind of connect to the game in a way that I think is really impressive, especially for a game, like Moon said, it's only about 2 hours long. It certainly isn't super long, but it's a beautiful game, a really great style, well animated. I love the kind of handwritten style of all the notes that are in the different cookbooks. I love the the puzzle making elements of trying to find like, okay, I know 3 of the 5 things here. All right, let's try and figure out these last 2 things and make this dish. Venom is super great. I highly recommend it. It's super short. You could probably play it in one sitting if you want, and it's on pretty much everything. And I don't really want to say too much because I don't want to really give it away. I think a lot of it is just you need to sit down and you need to play this yourself and kind of take the trip along with the game. All right, top 3. Let's do it. Number 3. Moon, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Jedi Survivor. As Nim said, it's hard to make a sequel at the best of times. There's very rare that you get a sequel that is as good or better than the original. Anytime you ask that question, people can maybe name 5 or 6, and it's the same 5 or 6 every single time. I'm looking at you, Mass Effect 2. Also, Bioshock 2 is better than the first one. Just saying, don't even come at me. That is a categorically correct statement. Jedi Survivor is as good as the first game. I think gameplay-wise, it is as good as the first game. I think it does so much more with its story and its world building than the first one did, because the first one had a bit of character development and a bit of story. I think 2 really fleshes out a lot of those characters. It fleshes out the people that have come into your crew in the time between the first game and this game. I think it has one of the best characters of 2023 period in Merrin. Like, Merrin is an insanely great character in that game. I would play a game from Merrin's perspective. Like, give me that at any point.
Especially where she comes from. Like, she ends up becoming the most compassionate character, and considering her background, you're like, there's no way.
Yep. Like her evolution from the first game to this game to the whole plot line, like you said, between her and Cal is fantastic. Like the constant backwards and forwards about the Jedi code versus her code, the Night Sisters code. Give me a Night Sister Survivor game. Like, that's fine. Give me that, because she has the powers to do it. Also, the game includes one of my favorite things, which is, hey, this thing that you don't know how it works, let me just change your perspective on it really quick and show you how it works. And it's sick. The new fighting styles, the combat, everything about the game is a general improvement over the first one. I think the characters are where this game stands out for me, is like that all of the storytelling between all of the crew is something really special. They do the stereotypical thing that they do in this game, which I'm fine with. It is a perfectly okay moment. Like, I don't care one way or the other about that particular sequence. Everybody was excited about that sequence. I was excited about this other sequence. Like, it's exactly how it goes with me. And like Nim said, like, there is a lot of leeway and spaces in the margins that you can draw here and make your own conclusions. I hope they do make a third game. I genuinely do, because this, for all of the talk of Grey Jedi and how they've been ousted from the canon, how they don't no longer exist anymore, there seems to be an awful lot of storytelling that involves essentially being a Grey Jedi these days. One might argue that Rey was a Grey Jedi. One could definitely argue that Cal, it could be considered a Grey Jedi at this point. Because of the stories that those particular characters went down. And that's your 2 biggest Jedis right now, potentially being Grey Jedi. Which means, hey, if we get a reset of the Jedi Order and they're more in line with the Grey Jedi, I'm fine with that, because they should be, because the Jedi Order are a bunch of nightmares.
Yes.
Literally, that is the whole point of Episode 8, which people hate, I love. Deal with it. I don't know. Jedi Survivor surprised me because it's an EA game, number one. And it's like, okay, is this going to be a decent sequel? And if it is a decent sequel, is it going to be worth my time and money? Yes, is the answer to that question. it was both a suitable sequel and I think it elevated the two games as a whole because of what it does with the story and the things that happened in the between times.
And they had a good. They knew what they were doing with the story. Like I am forever going to laugh at the best boss in that game, Rick the door technician.
Oh yeah,
because that was the most well-placed boss fight, and everyone had the same reaction of, I'm not ready for this. This can't happen right now.
And it turns out it's just a regular dude. Like,
yeah,
it's so good.
He's just a normal stormtrooper.
They have comic chops. The comedy timing is great. The serious moments are serious. Like, when appropriate, they have quiet times. Like that's something that you don't see in games that much anymore. Is like, let's take a beat. Let's talk and hash some things out and figure out maybe why we might be boned. And like the whole thing about having the planet behind the nebula and everything that entails, I think is a really good storytelling conceit. And the fact, minor spoilers for Jedi Survivor, because this is revealed at the start of the game. The fact that the key to getting behind this rift to this planet that has been lost was discovered and found in the Old Republic, not Episode 1 Old Republic, the old Republic, like way back when the Jedi were at the height of their powers. They found out how to do this, and the information was lost because the Republic fell. That is such a great thing, and the fact that they keep doing that flashbacks and going back to that time frame and showing you what the world looked like in the old Republic, it's just like great. You've not only looped in a bunch of lore from existing Star Wars, but you're also bringing in the ancient Republic, and the fact that they do that, I think it is a fun. Like, the first time it happened, it's like, wait, is this is what I think it is, right? And then the way everybody's dressed is different. It is very Old Republic for the way they're dressed.
The droids
are amazing.
They all look like race cars, or
Yeah, they took something that they didn't have to include in there, and they looped it in a way that made sense, in a way that, in my opinion, paid off, especially when you figure out who the three villains of this story is. Like, it's a really great reveal. And the fact that they don't have one villain, they have three, maybe four if you include the scene I mentioned earlier. But they have this, and they loop it all together in a very satisfying and believable and understandable way. I think that's why this makes it so high for me, is because, like, this pays off on a debt I was not expecting them to pay. I was not expecting this to come and be any good at all. It's fantastic. Like, if you like the first one, you should definitely play the second one. Jedi Survivor is my number 3.
I will say, and I also like the fact that they bring back some of the campiness to it, because that's what Star Wars is. It was never meant to be this serious thing of nerds fighting over what thing. I mean, I don't mind that, but I mean, like, it was never meant to be like this whole serious thing. It was always meant to be this weird good versus evil, campy kind of magical knights with glowing swords kind of story, and it doesn't bring a whole lot back, but it brings a little bit of that back,
Yeah, 100%.
All right, Nimp, what is your number 3?
My number 3 is The Legend of Heroes Trails to Azure. 0 came out last year. Azure was released early this year. These are the two cross-spell games that we never got in America, or in North America. We actually thought we would never get these games back because the original 2 came out. I think the first Trails in the Sky game in North America came out in 2003, and then second chapter came out in 2004, and then there was kind of like this 3 to 4 year gap when chapter 3 came out, and then we had like nothing for 6 years, because in that time these two crossbell games came out in Japan but never came out in America. And it wasn't until around 2013 that we got Cold Steel. And then it continued back on its every 2 years we get a new Legend of Heroes game. 2 to 3 years. So finally being able to play these games, one is great timing because the new games that also came out this year that are not on my list, Reverie, pretty much after the events of Zero and Azure, that's when Reverie starts. Like we're talking, hey, it's been a couple of months. Here we are. Which would have been the biggest screw job for us here on the Western audience if we had never gotten the other two games, because that's a whole like 2-year gap of video game stuff that we would have no clue about. So being able to play these games and go back to the old system before the Cold Steel series, where you're messing with quartz and you're lining it up just right, so that way you get more magic or arts for you to use, and you unlock different abilities and skill sets a completely different way than you do in the newer systems. And it was really fun just having a bunch of the little chibi characters running around on the screen instead of like, you know, the full 3D models that we have now. And the story, it's a steal. I mean, it's a Legend of Heroes game. The story is always kind of, hey, there's oppression happening, we need to solve it, and justice will always prevail because I have friends on my side.
Right.
That's what these stories are. It's always going to be the, you know, the darkest before, you know, dawn kind of story. And I think that's why I like these, is that they're no frills fun games. Like I pointed out with even the newer ones, they still do it where the car does like the PS2 thing where it makes a turn and it doesn't gently go on the slope. No, that thing just goes 90 degrees and starts going in a different direction. Like these aren't ever going to be something that win Game of the Year, Game Awards kind of thing, or for graphics or any of that. They're always just these fun little hokey games that you spend way too much time on, and then next thing you know, you're level 104 and you're still having difficulty against these hidden bosses that you just found. But hey, all my, you know, progress from these games have continued to move on. So, but yeah, Trails to Azure. It is a nice, fun game to play where you don't have to think terribly hard, and the story isn't beating you over the head about, hey, a lot of things are wrong with the world, we should fix them.
Right.
You know, it's it's just a nice game to play, and I'm really glad that we finally got these Western. So
Nice.
That is my number 3 spot, Trails to Azure.
My number 3 is Spirit Hunters Infinite Horde. Moon and I, please listen to Moon and I taking the trip on this game on We Were Like It, and then check out the supplementary material of us taking the trip on this game on this main show as well. I really like Bullet Heaven games a whole lot. I know there's like 1,000,001 of them out right now, so I'm trying to make sure that we check out or at least on We Were Like It, we check out kind of the ones that people seem to really like the most. I got to give a big shout out to longtime TVGP listener Rob for saying like, hey, this game seems pretty cool. Maybe you guys should check it out. Turns out, it's incredibly cool. And I think the thing about this game that I like the most is every one of its systems ties into everything else so incredibly well. Like, this is a game that feels well designed from the get-go, and it's not like, you know, some games you play and you're kind of like, oh, I think they just kind of like stumbled into this game. Not in a bad way, but like, I think they've stumbled in all these systems, and yeah, it just kind of works. But this game feels so interconnected in a way that is so satisfying that when you start unlocking everything on the, you know, the web of upgrades, you're like, okay, I played Final Fantasy X, whoopity-doo, here we go, let's get 5 more MP, yay, let's do this. But the thing that I like about so many roguelikes, and I think the thing that extends into great Bullet Heaven games, is when the game just kind of like takes off the limiters. It's just like, yeah, man, how about you get stupid powerful? How's that sound? It's like, yes, yeah, I want to live like that. And this game, each one of the upgrades in the web, the upgrade tree, whatever you want to call it, feels pretty good. Like, feels really strong. It's not like You get 0.05% more armor. Yay! It's like, no, this attack does 5 more damage. Now this attack does 10 more damage. And you're getting 5 of those upgrades in this little section of the web. Oh, and also, now this attack does something different by the time you get to X level. It does something different when you get to Y level. And then, the fun discovery where I feel like this game turns for everybody is like, now you can combine those 2 upgrades. It's like, not only was this weapon way stronger, now it gets crazy strong over here with this other thing. Oh, also, now it does both of those things, and you're upgrading all of those things at the same time. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And the level of unlocks and the pace of how the game continues to scale its difficulty feels so good, because by the time you're like, this game's too easy, whatever, man, I'm walking through these things. It's 15 minutes, yawn. And it's like, oh, there's a harder difficulty. Whoa, okay, wow, that's way harder. Oh, okay. Now I'm good. And by the time that's a snooze fest, you're like, oh, whatever. Oh, brutal. How hard is that? Woof, boy. Okay. Yeah.
Really
wow.
hard.
All right. Yep. Yeah, sure. I got. Oh, woof. All right. And then on top of that, you have all the challenge. Like each character has 10 different challenges, where it's like, all right, you got to play with these specific weapons and these modifiers, but you can't get these, and you have to play as this character, which some of them are easier than others. And again, all of that stuff feeds back into the upgrade train. All of that stuff feeds into, oh, now I have a new character that I like. But every character modifies any of the starting weapons in their own way. So it's not just, oh, I'll just pick this character and this weapon because I always do. No, this character synergizes really well with this other weapon. It's so good, and it's so well designed, and it's so fun to play. And unlike Vampire Survivors, it's only a 15-minute run. They put out that patch recently with like super turbo mode. If you turn that all the way on, a run is like 5 minutes now, because it's like 3 times as fast.
God, that feels dangerous.
It's very fast. I immediately died on one run because I was not ready for how fast that was. But like everything about it is super well designed, and it's super clean. And I think the thing that a lot of bullet heavens struggle with, it's super readable. It is a game where you know what's going on the screen pretty much all the time. And if it's a little too chaotic on the screen, it's probably because nothing's really getting to you, and you're electrifying 400 enemies all at the same time with a bunch of bouncing, shocking turrets that are around you. And I think everything about Spirit Hunters is really impressive, and it's really cool, and it's just, we don't play games this often that are so finely and tightly designed like this. I feel like a lot of it is just like, and we'll add this. Yeah, sure, why not? And we'll add this over there. Hey, yeah, sure, that kind of works. And all of it feels laser focused, and that feels really, really satisfying. Please go play Spirit Hunters. It's the game I have continued to play outside of We Roguelike It, which almost never happens. That's how good Spirit Hunters is. All right, top 2. Moon, what's your number 2?
This is where it really begins. I told you I had a top 2. This is my top 2.
That's right, roll twos.
This was a hard decision.
Yeah.
Like, the majority of my top 5 was relatively simple. The positioning of my top 2 was the difficult part. My bottom 5, difficult to figure out the order. My number 2 is Lethal Company. I know this game's in early access, so it's not officially out yet. I know it is only available on Steam. This is one of those games. And by one of those games, I mean, I don't care if it's a flavor of the month game. I don't care if it goes away in like 2 weeks or whatever the case may be. I have opened this game 3 times. My playtime for this game is 13 hours. That should tell you everything you need to know.
Yep.
Like, I don't often have time, but when I do have the time to, like, because specifically it was a Friday and a Saturday, and then it was this Friday, I believe. I sat down, I sent the text messages, and I asked people if they wanted to play Lethal Company. I got some yeses, so we sat down and played from 9 till 2 in the morning. That is how this game goes. Like, it is. I think frequently I am guilty of not being able to enjoy things. And that's part of my nature, it's part of my brain chemicals, which I'm trying to get fixed, but it's very difficult to do in this hellscape of a country. It is sometimes difficult for me to just play a game for fun, without purpose, without objective need to do something. Lethal Company is a game that every single time, all 3 times I have played it, I have had so much fun, so much laughter, so much giggles, so much screams. Failures, successes, it hasn't mattered. Anytime I'm playing this, it is a game that I've been able to just let go, to just play the game and not think about anything else, not think about sub-objectives or achievements or anything else. Just play for player's sake. Which is not something I can do often enough, because that is my brain. I can't help that right now. And every time I've played this, it has been, I don't want to stop. I know it's 1 in the morning. I don't want to stop. I know it's 3 in the morning. I don't want to stop. I just want all of us to continue having a good time and laughing. And then a lot of the time, this is about the people that you play with. And in my case, it was very good friends and people who mean a lot to me. So, like, having that ability to, we already all have from playing other games, we have the relationship build up. We have that circle that we know we can say what we want and what we mean, and it's not going to be offensive. Like, being able to call someone a stupid idiot because they ran into a room with a turret, for example, is great, because we say it in jest, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And hearing someone scream in the darkness and just that scream suddenly get cut off it's one of my favorite things to experience in this game. The game still is scary to me, and my favorite part is I know for a fact that we have not run into 2 specific monsters in the game, which I not want to talk about because that is massive spoilers, because you only get them on the harder moons. But we haven't been successful enough to get enough money to unlock the harder moons because we're always too busy messing around with teleporters or anything else that we buy. Oh, what does this inhaler do? Who knows? But I know Rob got high as a kite last time we played because he was just sucking on this inhaler the whole time.
That's the problem with you millennials, this generation.
Yes. But I don't think I can express how fun it is. And don't get me wrong, if you're a community member, if you're listening to this and you don't have me, I'm on Steam. Guess what my username is? It's Moonpier. Anytime I've got a space, I will happily jump in the Discord and say, hey, we've got a space, whatever. Add me on there whenever I have the time. Again, usually Fridays or Saturdays. I will happily jump in and play because I can't express how, I put the clip on X/Twitter, whatever, and I posted it in our Discord of that moment where Justin just ran off the edge of a ramp. And I had to cut it off at the point I cut it off because I spent another 6 minutes not being able to breathe. I was laughing so hard.
That was so funny.
That never happens with me. That never happens with me. I will play a game and it will be this huge emotional crescendo moment, and generally speaking, I'm like, okay, cool. They could drop the best comedy on the planet, and I'm like, that's funny, but not laugh. Whereas in this case, this was 15 minutes of me being literally unable to see the screen. I'm just playing through a haze of Vaseline as the tears fall through from my eyes, and having that ability and that fun, and then people winding me up by blowing air horns in the distance, and it's like, you literally just made me
Honk.
panic. Thanks for that, you
Honk.
mean person. I don't know. It has been so much fun to play. It has been so much fun. Like, I haven't been streaming because I don't want to stream right now. I'm not doing the performative aspect of this right now. But I've been recording the footage because I know there's gold in that footage. And like I said, I know there's those moments where it's just like, oh yeah, here's Justin running off an edge. Here is Rob coming around a corner and screaming because I'm right in front of him. Like, it's...
Here's someone asking, what does this mask do? And then chaos ensuing.
I haven't even seen that mask yet because that's the brand new update. I know,
Yeah.
and that's another thing that we haven't seen. But like, it's hard to this was my Alpha Protocol award winner, and then I realized that it was almost my Game of the Year winner, so it didn't need the Alpha Protocol award.
Or it
it's
could be
getting number
both.
2. In all honesty, this could be number 1, and I would be perfectly happy with it being number 1 because I cannot put into words suitably how much just pure fun I've had playing. I'm a 30-something-year-old man. I don't have time to do the math right now. Late 30s, we'll go there. And I'm not kidding. I don't know how old I am. I have to do the math.
We've been recording for a very long time. It's okay.
This is me on a regular day, let alone
Oh, okay.
recording day. But that ability to just let go and just be in the moment with my friends, having some of the stupidest fun. I got torn to shreds when I recently played because it was like, why would you go back in and pick up the heavy thing when you know what's outside waiting for you? Because I wanted to. The cash register was $130. I wanted that $130.
Yeah.
And now because of that, we have nothing because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. That's the best thing about it because, okay, so we died, we got ejected into space, we started again. We're still having fun.
Yeah.
That is the thing I can say most about this game is it has 3 loads, 13 hours or so. That is a game that is grabbing me and it makes me want to play so much.
Yeah.
And I cannot say enough good things about it. And again, if nobody's talking about it in a month, I don't care. The 13 hours I had with this game was some of the best time I had in 2023. That's why Lethal Company is my number 2.
All right, Nim, what's your number 2?
Well, my number 2 is a crowd favorite, and that is Ghostwire Tokyo.
Yeah, woo!
Yeah.
Starting out with this game, it is an interesting story of you, the character, becoming possessed. And then you get the cool cinematic of the death march at the death parade. I forget what it's talking about, but or what it's called. But you see that whole cinematic thing, and then the game's like, all right, go figure out what's happening. Like, okay. And the way it was always funny because you don't have a whole lot to start with, and the game doesn't give you the entire city to check out. It does the very smart thing of, here's a little section for you to explore. Oh, you've hit the next major plot. Here's a little bit more of the story and things for you to explore. Here's some items. All the items show up on your map as icons. You can turn them on and off as you please, but you're not spending hours of a time because you think you hear a sound that might correlate with an item that you're looking for. No, you just click on the icon on the map and it brings you, for most things, right to where you need to go. There's a couple of them where you have to search an area by design. But so you're running around, you're not all that powerful starting out. You're fighting these spirits that some of them look horrifying, some of them move horrifically. And you're not exactly sure how to deal with them. And then as you become more comfortable with the things that you've dealt with, it always throws in an extra thing of, okay, here's a new thing that you need to figure out how to deal with now. Meanwhile, depending on what portion of the map you're on, sometimes that death march magically shows up. And it's a really cool scene where you're walking around and all of a sudden the lights start to flicker and then it goes dark and you're like, what is going on? And then you look around and you see fog rolling in, and in that fog you see all those spirits and you're like, I need to get out of here. And they don't care about you. It wasn't until I had beaten the game and did one of those, went back to a previous save and fought one of those for the first time. You have to run into the middle of that thing and activate it. They don't care about you. You are so far beneath them that they just don't care. And even that was a really cool scene of activating that for the first time and finding out what that actually is. It's like, oh, I've been terrified of this thing this entire game. And in the beginning, yeah, I probably would have died. But now, like, I'm walking through here like I own this, you know? Which, bringing up acting like you own this, the skills and abilities that you can unlock, and like in combat, like the different abilities that you have in there, the ninjutsu or whatever they call it, with the different hand and finger movements and stuff like that you're doing. You're throwing talismans. You got your one-hit kills with the bow and arrow, which you can charge and change and do different things with. But then you start getting some of the traversal stuff where it's like, hey, I can start floating through the air now for seconds at a time, depending on how far I upgrade it. Or I can unlock this ability where a Tengu shows up at the top of a building and I can like spirit lasso that thing and launch myself to the top of that building. And then with the gliding, I can fling myself halfway across Tokyo, no problem, while I'm looking for this stupid little statue to upgrade myself, you know? It's just a lot of fun. Like Moon said, like we've all said, like anyone who's ever played this game said, you need to play with the controls. Okay? I don't know who set that up. That person plays games way differently than the rest of the world, it seems like. But you need to take the time to play with the controls. Do not let that be a moment where you start it and you're like, oh, these controls suck, and then you shut it off. Take the time to play with the controls. Get it so that it feels right to you, and then play the game. Because there is so much here to do. I've almost got 1,000 of the base game. I'm at like 750 right now. And I am planning on going back and doing that. But then they also have like that roguelike DLC that they released.
Oh boy. I saw the other day my playtime in this is 139 hours, by the way.
Jeez. I don't even
probably
know
about 70 of that is that roguelike version.
Well, that's the thing. I kind of want to go back and check that. Roguelites aren't really my thing, but the gameplay and just the style of the game, it's like I really enjoy being in this world and playing it. And like we brought up with the DLC, there are points in this game where it goes from being, okay, you know, there's ghosts and spirits and okay, whatever. But then there are definite points where it's like, what is that thing? Oh my god, it is crawling on the ceiling upside down towards me and I can't do anything to it. Or Mr. Squishy or Squeaky.
Yep.
Chasing you through a school. I knew what that thing was going to be, again, because of SCP, but acknowledging that and then having to deal with that thing was the dumbest, scariest, and funniest thing ever. But yeah, it was... Overall, Ghostwire Tokyo is a very, very good and fun game, and I would love to see another one of these of some kind somewhere, you know? So that's my number 2. And I keep saying it backwards every time. My number 2 is Ghostwire Tokyo, not Tokyo Ghostwire.
I really wish I put Ghostwire Tokyo on my list. I really love that game, and I just forgot about it, because... we talked about it so much on Game Club of the Year. I was like, oh yeah, that came out like a couple years ago. Nope. Came to Xbox this year. My number 2 is Theater Rhythm Final Bar Line. I
hated this is not on the Xbox.
Yeah, me too. It sucks. Square. This is really... the Theater Rhythm games have always been very much games for me, because they are Final Fantasy music rhythm games.
Yeah.
And this game doesn't really stray from that formula. It's controls almost exactly the same as all the other ones. Doesn't have touch screens, so things are a little bit different, but I think the way that they change this game to work on a controller works really well. And it really is a celebration of Square Enix music throughout Final Fantasy games and Final Fantasy adjacent stuff. Doesn't really touch on any of the Enix stuff. Sadly, we didn't get the Theatrhythm Dragon Quest game here in the U.S. But there are 400 plus games in this. There's like 385 in just the base game, and there's a bunch of extra ones in the bigger editions. And then there have been, I think, almost 15 DLC packs that have come out, and each one has 3 to 10 tracks. They just put out like 10 or 15 for Final Fantasy 16 a couple weeks ago. Like, they're just pumping hundreds of songs into this game. And I think the music selection is really, really great. That's kind of the thing that this game would live or die on. I think all of that stuff is really great. The characters you unlock are really, really great. It's kind of all the heroes and villains you would want. And then the icing on top of the cake is that endless world, where you're going through ever increasingly more difficult challenges as you get deeper and deeper, but it randomizes which songs you're picking from, and it includes all the DLC. So if you want something that's really replayable, here's just, you keep adding 100 more songs and 100 more songs into this thing, and now you've got something that's really cool. And I wouldn't be surprised if Square's kind of done with this game at this point. Seems like they've released all the DLC packs they said they were going to. They stuck exactly to their release schedule too, which is really impressive. But even if they're done, this game is huge. This game is really great. Nothing is really wrong with it, and I'm having a blast. I'm still playing it. At this point, I'm still going through and trying to complete all of the challenges. And I said in an episode a couple weeks ago, I just finished playing all of the songs at least once. So, and that's not even including all the DLC stuff. I haven't played half of that stuff. So, Theatrhythm Barline, Final Barline is really great. It will probably be the last Theatrhythm game, which is fine. But it's just an outstanding Final Fantasy music package and a really great rhythm game to boot. It's really fantastic. All right. Here's the big one. Our number one game. Moon, what's at the top of your list?
So I'm not kidding when I was talking about Lethal Company, how it was potentially my game of the year. It is flipped like 3 or 4 times while we have been recording.
Yep.
Not even talking about before that, but it's Dead Space.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is with birthday games for me and why they keep making it to my game of the year top spot. I think it's because they come out at the right time. But I'm pretty sure out of all the game of the years I've done, most of them have been January releases because it's a treat to myself, and then I buy it, and then, oh no, it happens to be fantastic. I'm looking at you, Monster Hunter World. I'm looking at you, the Resident Evil remakes. I'm looking at you, Dead Space. They all came out right around my birthday. I mean, I think Dead Space is going to be forgotten about this year. I genuinely do. I think most outlets will probably forget that it came out this year. And most outlets will forget that Dead Space 1 was already a Game of the Year contender. And I think the remake deserves the same respect because it does what remakes should do, which is it remakes, remasters, however you want to rephrase that particular thing. This is a remake, I believe. When you are playing the game, it makes you feel like you are playing the game that you remember. This isn't no Grand Theft Auto trilogy re-release where everything is a circle that shouldn't be a circle kind of BS. This is... People forgot that came out this year, I bet. This is a game that is from the ground up completely redesigned, completely redone. The graphics are incredible. Like the game, let's talk about like that really quick. Like the game looks insanely good. Like for the game it is, for it to be based on a 2006, I think, game.
Something like that, yeah.
It looks incredible. The lighting is beautiful all the way down. And I mean that literally. it controls how you want to control. It doesn't do the old Dead Space thing of like when you stomp, you can only stomp once. It does the Dead Space 2 thing of stomp, 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 stomp. Like you can keep that beat going, which I think
going
is
until you're
incredible.
good and ready to stop. And
Yes, exactly. And like it does everything right. It does the atmosphere right. It does the sound design right. It does the music right. It does the story. It changes the story for the first Dead Space, and I think those are changes for the positive mostly. That disappointment or agreement, I can't tell.
No, I haven't played it, but I really love the first Dead Space game. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It is one of the games of the generation. We talked about it on our Games of the Generation show.
Yeah, I had to use a lot of liquid courage towards the end of that game to get through that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I can handle a modern version of that game. And you telling me that it's getting like the kind of Final Fantasy VII remake treatment of, hey, remember how this played? They might play on that a little bit now.
They 100% do. They have an alternate ending. If you beat the game with a certain thing, there's a secondary ending, which I think is a really nice little touch.
Nice.
And it's the scarier of the endings.
Oh.
And of course, I'm a monster. Isaac should come get me, is what I'm saying. Hey, Isaac, hit me up. Like, get them digits and hit me up. And I got the full game score, the full completion, and I loved every single second of it because I also did the stupid insane mode where you can only save like 3 times.
God, I hate that.
And I got that gun. But that's the thing, is that's one of the reasons why I've always loved Dead Space, is because just like Resident Evil, they reward you for the achievements. So if you get that achievement, you start the game with the hand cannon, which is the most powerful gun in the game and the stupidest thing that exists in video games. I don't care what you say.
Yeah, it's a play on words.
Yep.
And like they do that whole thing, like the text is built out a little bit more in certain areas. The bits that the lore was missing, certain bits is now in there and improved. They have subtle little references to the first Dead Space where they'll play like an audio log, but it's an audio log directly ripped from the first Dead Space because the sound quality is different. Like they have nice little touches here and there, and like the fact that the game looks as good as it does and plays superbly still. I think Dead Space 1 probably still holds up. I think this is an insanely smart and polished way to do the remake. I hope they do 2, because 2 I think is possibly one of the best Dead Spaces. And again, it gets used a lot, but it's very much the Alien to Aliens conversation. Dead Space 1 is Alien, Dead Space 2 is Aliens. Is that whole sequel progression. And I think Dead Space 1 is an incredible game. I prefer 2. And see if they can do this to 2 and then do 3 again. I think 3 is fine. I like the fact that it's a co-op game where one person sees things that the other person doesn't. Like
that was the best part about 3. They just continue to screw with you.
Yes. I wasn't expecting this remake to be as good as it is, and it is every bit as good as I thought it wouldn't be. It is the appropriate flowers that Dead Space 1 deserves, I think. And I think if you're a fan of the survival horror genre, because as the older generation, we frequently don't realize that most people don't know what Dead Space is.
Yeah.
Like most of the gaming audience now is below the age where they would be able to play Dead Space.
Yeah.
And as such, this is a good introduction for them to the franchise as a whole. So like,
you want to be mentally scarred for the rest of your life? Play Dead Space.
Yep.
Hey, you think you're intelligent or creative? Here, have this story about a thing that messes with you when you're creative or intelligent. Have fun with that.
Yep.
I don't know. Dead Space is my number 1. It's my game of the year. The game blew me out the water every single time I played it. It's fantastic.
Nice.
All right, Nimp, what is your top game of the year?
My top game of 2023 is Spirit Hunters Infinite Horde.
Nice.
Because
the man who played it in a week.
Well, I was gonna say, I think because I just blew through this game. we all know the only roguelike I like is what do they call it? A heaven
Oh,
bullet
Bullet
heaven,
Heaven. Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Vampire Survivors. Yes. Um, like I said in the show, this game is so well designed that you get to a point where you're like, okay, this is kind of feeling repetitive. This is getting a little boring. And then all of a sudden it opens up something new for you. And then it just sucks you right back in where it's like, okay, now I have these new options to mess with. Mods for weapons like was a whole new thing where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm not really getting anywhere with these weapons. Like they're fine, but they're not really doing anything. And then you get bomb pods for vines, and that literally blows everything off the hinges in that game.
Yep.
um the whole thing with the web and upgrading that, where you're constantly able to just pick and choose, okay, I need to do like a challenge, a normal challenge with this character. Okay, let me go do that. But even while I'm doing this challenge, I could be doing like three different things to help unlock something else in the web as well.
Right.
And it kind of just got to the point where this was just like my comfort game, where I talked about how my brain would just shut off playing this game. I would just be there doing the game, and it would get really bad when I'm doing specific challenge. And this is one thing I hate about this game. One thing. When you do the challenges, it's always, hey, you can't use this weapon or this mod or this, whatever. But it's still selectable. They don't take it out of the rotation.
Right.
And so I would zone out and be playing a brutal challenge and be like, okay, I need to get this, this, and this. And then within 2 minutes of the stupid game starting, I've already voided out the challenge because I just went right into how I know I'm going to beat this challenge.
Right.
So, but that's kind of the best part, where it's you get into a flow. You know what weapons you want. You know what weapons you need to get to whatever you're trying to complete, and then you just do it. And it being 15 minutes is great, because I would get people who would message me and say, hey, did you call into work today? I'm like, no, I'm just playing real quick before I go into work, and then I come home and sit down. And this is the other thing, I would come home and sit down, and it would be, I got home, I'm going to take a break, and then I've got my wife in here asking me 4 hours later, hey, it's late, what are we doing for dinner? Where you just,
right.
yeah. It's that one more thing. It's like, okay, I just got to do this one more thing, and I
Yep.
got to do one more thing, and then it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I haven't slept yet.
Right.
So overall, it is a really great game. They did a really good job with the flow of the game, with developing the weapons, with how you can upgrade things. The other thing that I'm going to point out that I hate is just the one Reaper character sucks. It has no purpose. It not being able to heal does not seem to really help, because it's supposed to put out more damage to enemies. The trade-off is you can't heal. I don't see that DPS anywhere using that character. So it just kind of makes it extra difficult. But to get around its brutal challenge, like I had to sit there and really think about, okay, I can't heal with this character at all. I'm about to do a brutal challenge. I can only do these 3 missions, which each have their own issues, let's say. How am I going to do this? And I had to sit there and mess with it. And then I finally got something going where I'm like, okay, this could work. And then I hit that 15 minutes and I was golden. I was like, sweet. Nice. It's just a fun game. Even playing the hardcore game. Like, I think I sweated a little bit on that one, because there were a lot of close calls doing a fresh hardcore save where you have nothing, and you're like, oh, I can't die because I'm only like 2 minutes into this, and if I die, it's going to wipe my 2-minute-old save,
Right.
So I have to really, really be on my A game for this. So I like that it's, you get out of it what you put into it. It can either be the calm, oh, I just sat here and zoned out for 4-hour game, or it's you're on the balls of your feet, making sure that you're hitting that tiny little opening that you see, and you're dancing. You're doing this little Barry Sanders thing of weaving in and out between all the opponents so you don't take damage. So it is just a really fun game. So Spirit Hunters Infinite Horde is my number 1 game for this year.
Nice. My number 1, shocking even myself, is The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. much like Ghostwire Tokyo, I was going into this one not really expecting a lot because I played and I finished Breath of the Wild and I liked it, but it wasn't my game of the generation, game of the forever, game of all time kind of thing. Like I feel like a lot of people felt about Breath of the Wild. So I was going in with fairly low expectations, also because I kind of have never clicked with games like this, like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, where you're solving the puzzles in the game by building things or connecting things or stuff like that. My brain doesn't really work creatively in that way. But man, everything about this was really great, and I feel like the game managed to be more interesting than I was expecting, because it was like, yeah, you're going back to Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, and it's largely similar, but changed in some ways, but also you just have the whole Sky Island stuff, which I think listening to some people's impressions here as the year has gone on, maybe we're a little bit underwhelmed by it, but I liked the gameplay loop of having to have materials you're getting in the Sky Islands that you'll be using in Hyrule and then in the depths. And you can only get stuff in one layer of the game that you then use in the other layers. It's not, you kind of can't sit there and stay in one layer over the entirety of the game. Oh gosh, sorry, I tried to... Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. Get all worked up here with Tears of the Kingdom. Whew. I think Nintendo did a really great job of letting you be creative to solve these puzzles and solve these problems, but while giving you enough tools or giving you enough hints kind of in each area where it's like, even separate from the shrines is very much like, hey, what are you going to build to do this thing? We've kind of built like 95% of this thing that's going to push a bunch of orbs into this area, and that unlocks it, yay. But also out in the world, it's a lot of like, you'll run into the guy that wants you to help him hold up the sign. It's like, all right, how do I get all these parts I have together to hold up the sign for long enough for him to be happy? Or how do I get from point A to point B to just get over to that place? All right, I've got these tools, or I've gathered up in the Zonai Gotcha machine. I have a bunch of these things that I can bring with me. How do I use all this stuff? And I feel like for someone like me, they gave enough guidance to get you there without feeling like, hey, dummy, just go do this. There's a fine line between those two, and I feel like it kind of stuck with it the whole time in a way that's really impressive.
Especially since you can get away with a lot of things just like shoelaces and bubble gum. You're like, you know what? That's perfect.
Right.
And then you pull up a video of somebody else and they built like a 1-to-1 scale enterprise that they're just blowing up the world.
Right. Uh-huh. And part of the thing that's really great in this game too, that I think I didn't really have in a lot of other games that have the kind of creative building mechanics, is when my ramshackle creations failed and killed me, it was funny every time. Like I tried to put together this eldritch monstrosity of a wagon that I knew wasn't going to work, and it totally didn't work and killed me. That was priceless each and every time. And then like seeing them encourage you to kind of break their game, and then just giving you a power that just lets you go through mountains. It's just like, hey man, you just want to go up through the world? Yeah, go crazy. Whatever. You can go wherever you want. Like for real this time. And you can do it by swimming through the world. No big deal. Don't even worry about it. I think I really love this game. I think the changes to the dungeons felt better. It felt more rewarding than the Divine Beasts from the Breath of the Wild. felt more
Yeah.
rewarding, felt more like they were kind of part of the world and they were part of the story as opposed to something you're doing. Going back through the different areas and seeing how they've changed helped a lot. I don't even know what to say about the depths. I really, really loved it. Having a genuinely kind of not terrifying, but a dark unknown area that you're very slowly working your way through felt really cool. Felt largely out of place in a Zelda game that I think really worked for the game overall. And I think it had a shockingly satisfying story. There's a moment that happened near the end of that game that I wish more people got to the end of that game, because it's genuinely one of the few moments in games that's genuinely funny and terrifying at the same time, which is an incredible payoff, and it's just outstanding. I'm sure that anyone listening to this is probably going to, as more and more top 10 lists come out, I'm sure this will end up at a lot of, this and Baldur's Gate 3, like the community will probably turn out to be top games of the year. And for me, I think it totally deserves it. It's another landmark Zelda game that comes out, and it's like a Mario game. It's like a Halo game. It's like any sort of one of these big tentpole releases that comes out, and it's like, yep, it's another From Software game. Yep, it's the best game of the year because they just kill it every single time. It's nice to see Zelda get two back-to-back ones like this, because it's not always like, oh, this one was really great. Oh, this one was not super great.
Yeah.
But thankfully they did it back-to-back, and Tears of the Kingdom, kind of, as I was making this list, is like, oh, I'm going to put it at the top. It's probably going to be number one, and it just didn't move. As I shuffled literally everything else around, it just didn't move the entire time. So, Tears of the Kingdom, super great. I love
I will play it eventually.
it. Yeah, and hopefully
Yeah, I'll
you'll
get
enjoy
back
it.
to it too.
Yeah.
I want them to
all
bring
right.
back the bombs. Do
Yeah.
it, you cowards.
Come on, Nintendo. Yeah. All right, well, that's our episode. It's 3 hours. No big deal. Yeah. Well, as we said, it's a really great year for games this year. We had two. Thankfully, another year where we have 3 vastly different top 10 lists. Go play Prey. But we had a ton of different stuff we played this year. That a lot of it was just 1 or 2 of us played it, not all 3 of us did, and I think that's really cool. And hopefully everybody listening had a great year and had a great time playing. The 4,000 games that came out this year that were all really good and were all AAA fantastic games. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll be back next week for our 2024 predictions. Don't forget to listen so you can hear exactly how wrong we were in the last year and how wrong we're going to be in 2024. We'll see you all next week.
Hey.
What?
No,
Yeah.
no. Knock it off with that.
We got to wrap it up.
We do. We will. Thank you, Boston.
Mm.
Because for those listening who don't realize this, with the exception of Wayward Sons, Boston does every single bit of editing. He has obviously puts everything together, sticks it all on the timelines, make sure you guys get it correctly. If there's a problem, he fixes it instantaneously. It's a lot of work that goes into doing this show.
Yep.
I know, as someone who does one show, like how much work goes into each of these things. Not even talking about dynamic soundtrack, which I don't even want to know how long that thing took you.
You really don't.
Yeah, I know. So from myself, from Nimp, and I'm sure from the community as a whole, thank you for putting all of this stuff together week after week, time after time. Again, another year goes by with no missed weeks. No matter what hits us, we keep going, and we keep going.
Yep.
So from
Train
me,
doesn't
from
stop.
us, from everybody, thank you for doing what you do every single week.
I appreciate it. I wouldn't still be doing this after 16, 17 years if I wasn't enjoying it, and sure are burnt out here by the time we hit podcast vacation, but and ready to take the 2 weeks off. But I do still really enjoy doing all of this stuff. I am a sicko that does enjoy editing, so it is my pleasure to help usher these episodes out into the world. And I hope everybody enjoys it. I hope everybody enjoys their holidays, and I hope we'll see everybody next week and in 2024. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.